call the meeting to order. And do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
With the change?
Yes. So we are going to move number 6 to the end of the agenda, because that will be quite a long discussion. So we have a motion with the amendment. A second?
Second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that passes. Okay, the next thing we have is the council liaison update.
Good evening, I'm Brian Mundell, your City Council liaison. City Council update. We had the public hearing for changing the structure of the EDA that had to be separated between 2 meetings. So the final update on that, some members of the EDA, or some members of City Council did choose to replace citizen members of the EDA with regular council members and reduce the EDA from 7 members to 5 members as the citizens members' terms end. So eventually it would just be 5 council members that would be on the EDA. The site plan and CUP for the second building on the Country Hearth site was approved. East Bethel has hired a new fire chief, Mr. Jeffrey Silocha, with an official start date of today, May 27th. Our fire inspector, Ben Uden, was promoted to deputy fire chief. And Booster Day is coming up, July 19th. Volunteers are needed for the event. It could just be for an hour or as much time as you'd like to commit. If anyone is interested, you can visit eastbethelboosterdays.com and find some more information there. So any questions or comments?
I was just going to ask, do you have any questions, Tanner, about the EDA?
I guess I make sure I understood you right. So we're basically phasing out the EDA with city council, or citizen members with city council?
Yes.
Can I ask what prompted that, or where that comes from?
It was not from me. I fully believe that citizen members, especially some of the members, current members and past members on the EDA were very exceptional people and brought forth new ideas, new information, and their unique contacts from their professional careers. And losing that to just have council members serve on it, it is effectively just a echo chamber.
Yeah, I guess to me, then I don't know why we even have an EDA and just put those items on your agenda in city council. Just personal opinion. But.
Yeah, no, part of it was last year there was only 3 EDA meetings that were scheduled, and some members of the city council thought it wasn't very effective as it was set up, and that they would just handle it themselves.
Thank you for the information.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn?
Yeah, I noticed this packet, which is like 107 or more pages. There seems to be a bunch of superfluous information that I don't know how much time staff is spending to research these, but for example, we have a simple 3-lot split, which is either going to be 3 or 2 lots, it would seem. Pretty straightforward, and there's all these pages about different kinds of developments that have to deal with like 20-acre developments, flexible residential development. So it's a lot of extra stuff that we don't need.
I think that lot split, and Kendra, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that sits next to a wildlife preserve. Is that the one that we're talking about?
Yeah, that's Grace's project, and yeah, I think that is in our SNE area, as she said. So it's got some complications to it that I think she felt it was important that the commission understand.
Yeah,
Right, I'm not-
from my understanding, because it bordered the wildlife sanctuary, that there's different rules that have to be applied to it, that even just on the surface, it looks like it should be an easy split, because it sits next to there's additional rules and hoops that you have to jump through.
Right, I'm not disputing that. It's the flexible residential development, these pages that were researched and added to this that have pretty much nothing to do with that in terms of this particular thing. And that's one of numerous examples, like the barn dominium thing has like 8, I think, different types of barn designs, and a Menards color steel siding thing, and it's just like a lot more
As
information.
far as how the packets are put together, you know that council members don't do that.
Right,
I can take that information and pass it along.
yeah, my point actually is partly that if there's a lot of research that goes into doing that, that isn't germane to this, you know, in front of us, maybe not spend so much time with that is all.
Yep, I can take that concern and speak to the appropriate people about it.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you
No,
for the update.
Thank you very much.
No problem, and always, as always, thank you for your service.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I think we bypassed the minutes. I didn't have any corrections, but if we need to,
yeah, did you have
I
any
have
corrections?
something to talk about with the property. Do it with
No
when I
corrections?
sign up
No
over
corrections.
there. I just
Anyone
a-
have corrections? No. Okay,
I'll move to approve the minutes as read it.
perfect.
Second,
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? So the minutes have been approved. The next thing on the agenda is the interview of the planning commission candidates. We have 2 people that are applying for, do you guys want to take this?
Yes, we have 2 applicants for the planning commission. One applicant, Eldon Holmes, is not able to be present today, so I have provided his letter of consideration to the commissioners to review. The other applicant is Christina Pagnek. She is present and able to be interviewed.
Okay, so Eldon Holmes was given a list of the questions that we're going to be asking the candidate that's here tonight, and he has answered it.
Yep.
So there you go.
And I'm pretty confident everyone sitting on this commission right now was here the last time he was up when the last seat was.
I don't know, were you, Brian and Corey?
Yeah, I think he had applied when, and I apologize, her name escapes me at the moment, but
Diana?
Diana, thank you.
Mhm.
I think they applied at the same time.
Okay,
So, just for what it's worth being,
Yeah, yeah.
we've gone through some of those similar questions.
Yep.
So. But, and
okay,
we're here tonight to recommend up to 2 open seats.
right, so we
With
have
2
2 open
applicants.
seats, and we have 2 applicants, and we can recommend both of them, or we can recommend one of them, or none of them. And that's what we're going to do. I will give you maybe a minute to just read this letter from Eldon, if you choose to. Okay. So now, we're going to ask Christina, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. Pena. Okay, if you could please step up to the podium. And generally what we do is we we have a list of questions we're gonna ask, and we're gonna start with Brian. Is going to start asking you a question, but could you please say your name?
Sure, yeah.
Consider-
My name is Christina Paniak. I moved to East Bethel in 2018. I can just give you a quick little background if that's okay. With my husband Alan and my son Colton. We live just right up the road here off of 160, off of 65 on 229th. My son went to school at the St. Francis High School. He has since graduated, went off just to play football at NDSCS, and now he's off adulting. So it's just me and my husband. So we've been here for a good 8 years, and just love the community. So I'm actually from the south side of the city, so being on the north side has been was an adjustment to begin with, but now that I'm up here, I really enjoy it, so.
Great. Why are you interested then in becoming a commissioner member for East Bethel?
Absolutely. So recently, actually, we had to file a variance to do a home project. So through that process, I was part of the planning committee or planning commission to present the idea, and then I was at the city council. And so through this, and witnessing like the transparency dialogue and the thoughtful decision making just made me kind of really spark my interest in getting involved in the community. So it got me excited to be being part of the change. And I just thought maybe as a like a newer, 8 years is maybe not super long to be in the community, but a newer face to the community and new ideas, I could bring something a little extra to the commission.
Thank you.
Great. What strengths and abilities would you bring to the planning commission?
Absolutely. So I worked in healthcare for the past 16 years, not on the medical side, but I work in claims and finance and auditing. So a lot of strategic planning, a lot of analysis, that sort of thing. But most, I would say specifically that would kind of correlate to on the commission is effective communication. So that, again, I would draw back to as a commission member, leveraging my expertise in facilitating open dialogue, again, ensuring that the community's needs are met, effectively hinging the strong relationships among members, again, just creating those trust, right? Trust amongst not only our community members, but our city leaders too. So I think with my years of experience with, again, working amongst many teams and cross-functional teams and such like that, I have a strong background in that.
Great, thank you.
As a planning commission member, what do you believe is your role as a representative of the city?
I've never thought of this. Was a great question. I'm like, wow, what a great question when it was asked. I'm like, what is my role? So I see my role as being kind of, again, a bridge between the city's vision and the residents. So again, this was very new to me. I didn't realize maybe the complexity of certain things that you needed to have to file variances, or to what is required, or what steps need to be taken. So again, creating simplicity for our community members, being able to speak to them in a way that they are understanding what needs to happen next. So again, being that person that I can not only relate to kind of what they're going through, but again, just bridging that gap for them. So that's what I would like to be as a commission member.
So Christina, what is your vision for the Highway 65 corridor?
Another great question. Never thought of that one, but I was like, well, my biggest top priority, I think, is safety. I don't know for anyone else, but that is my vision. Is just there's just alarming accidents on Highway 65. So I guess as far as I didn't think anything bigger than that, as far as businesses or to develop it or not develop it. I'm kind of on the fence on that, but I think right now, just the high rates of accidents that continue to happen, the traffic safety, I think there needs to be some sort of initiative to get that under control. I don't know if it is higher police presence. I know putting in overpasses is not quite effective or cost effective. We can't be putting overpasses everywhere, but Again, just some way to reduce the speed, some way to bring more safety to the Highway 65. That is my top concern, with me driving it daily, with my son driving it daily, with family members and such. That is my concern for Highway 65 at this point.
Yeah, and, and when we talk about the 65, Highway 65 corridor, we are kind of talking about the development of businesses or not so much too, and what's your feelings on that?
Again, I'm kind of in the middle. I do see like the Quick Trip is wonderful, right? Everyone loves Quick Trip. That was a great development. I do like the small community though, so I don't want to bring too much up north that we lose that small community feeling. So I love the convenience of it, and I know some of the community members would love those, an extra grocery store or maybe another big box store, those types of things. Again, I guess if it fits right and the community is requesting it and there's a need for it, by all means. But again, to balance out that, the balance of the life that we have up here, to make sure we're keeping everyone in mind when we're considering those things.
Thanks.
Do you hold any roles that could place you in a position with a conflict of interest, i.e. financial, familial relationships, or groups engaged in community matters as a planning commission member?
I do not, no.
Thank
Do you have a preference for which term that you serve? The partial term expiring in 2026 versus the full term expiring in 2028?
I would be willing to do the full term, 2028. Again, I think it'll just give me more exposure since I'm so new to this. So I would be willing to absolutely take the full term and learn as I go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Before we end this, do you have any questions of us?
I guess I would be curious on how you guys chose to get on the planning commission. If like something happened, like for me, like I said, I started, I even just consider this because I had to file a variance. So that kind of brought me here. So I was just like, is there something that you always have been in this? This is a passion for you, or is there something that you kind of drove you to be part of this, the commission yourself?
Yeah, I started my family here in the city, and I wanted to become more active in the city and volunteer where I could to help out and learn more about this community I've decided to raise my family in.
Perfect.
For me, I had to call city engineer at the time with a question about a property next to mine, and started having a dialogue and questions, and then it was, hey, we got an opening on roads, why don't you come check that out? And then 6 months later, it was on another commission, and then I saw kind of what was going on. This was back in the late early 2000s, and there was a lot of change going on at that time, a lot of turmoil and shakeup, and there was an opportunity to put some of my knowledge to use, and again, being fresh, similar to you, same mindset. Over time, you definitely get a better feel for it. The one thing I would say, if you are appointed, is keep in mind we all started somewhere. We all started not knowing what some of the terms are, definitions are, and again, I'll just say this. I'll say it to you, and I'll say it to every resident as well. We're residents too.
Sure.
We're not elected. This commission is volunteer, just giving our opinion based on what the rules are set before us. It is on, we work at the behest of city council, so again, we're an advisory group. But yeah, it can be rewarding, it can be difficult, all at the same time, and all you can ever do is try to offer the best advice or information you can based on what you have in front of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I worked in public service, sewer and water for my career, retired. I've seen a lot of good things and bad things happen in communities with public service, public works, city hall, all kinds of stuff. And so I just thought it was a pretty good tool. The city could use me and maybe not do what I want, but learn from what I see in the good and the bad, And so, yeah, it's been pretty exciting to get on here and help. And
that's what I'm looking forward to, be able to, if I can help somewhere.
Yeah. And in all different backgrounds help.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I was similar to you in that I went through a variance process with our farm that's on Highway 65, and it wasn't a real easy thing to do it in my mind at the time, and so here I am.
Yep. Okay.
I moved here in '97 and wanted to be involved, and thought planning and zoning would be a good fit because I have an architecture and construction
Oh.
background before fine art, becoming a fine artist. And also I thought I could bring, like listening to what everything is presented to us and making decisions rather than having an agenda that I wanted to push. I thought that would be a good quality to have here, so that's pretty much it.
Thank you, thank you, that's, yeah,
So,
that's.
Thank
kind
you
of-
very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have no other questions, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
anything else?
Perfect. Normally we send the applicants out, but I think what we should do now is we have two pieces of paper, one for the full term, one for the partial term. So right on the top, full term on one and partial on the other. And then if you could please write a name under the partial term and a name under the full term, and you do not have to fill both of them. And then Grace will be tabulating these. So whenever you're done, just fold them and send them over, please. Yes.
Grace. Two more. We're good.
Okay, so again, Grace is just going to tabulate them and announce it. Now, this is just a recommendation to the city council. Do you know when city council is going to be talking about this?
It will likely be the June 9th meeting, I believe. The next city council meeting on June 9th.
And there are no more interviews, are there? They just kind of look at what we've done,
Yes, yep.
We haven't received any other candidates at this time.
right?
Well, she tabulates that. I just wanted to say, and I appreciate everyone's answers to the last, or to Kristen's question, and it coinciding with Brian's update on what's going on with the EDA. I would say everyone's responses here was the exact reason why we advocate for, or at least I advocate for, residents at large to be involved in these commissions, such as EDA, planning, et cetera, because it does bring the opportunity to have multiple different people from multiple different backgrounds,
Exactly.
which is a collection of our residents and not just the elected, but the rest of the masses to have an opportunity to put themselves out there to do such things. And although it may not always be the most efficient thing, it's still well worth it and a good resource. And I hope the city council hears this and reassesses their decision making.
Yeah, I think that this is our biggest strength as a planning commission, is all of these vastly different ideas about things.
Yep.
And generally, we come to consensus about things. Okay.
All right, we've received 5 votes for Christina for the full term and 5 votes for Eldon for the partial term.
Okay, great. So, again, it's a recommendation from the city council, but thank you for showing up tonight.
Should we do a formal motion on it, or just as is?
If you want to, you certainly can.
I just, posterity, I guess,
Sure.
I'd make a motion to recommend appointing Christina to the full term and Eldon to the partial term.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
And any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? So that motion passes. So congratulations. Next thing on our agenda is the number 7. It's a request by the applicant, D&D Construction. And Grace, are you going to be announcing this, or is Kendra?
This one's mine.
Okay.
So this is a public hearing. Dan McConnell is the applicant. He's purchased the property at 21476 Johnson Street. and he's applying for a site plan, a conditional use permit, and 4 variances to allow exterior storage for equipment on the north side of this lot. The property is guided commercial and is zoned B3 highway commercial. The site plan is for just that exterior storage. There's no changes planned to the building or existing parking lot. And the site plan only meets the ordinance standards if both the CUP and several of the variances are approved. Exterior storage is a conditional use permit in the B3 district, subject to specific performance standards that are outlined in the ordinance, and I'll talk a little bit about those. There are 4 variances, and I'll talk about each one, but just in summary, the first variance is to allow storage in the front yard. The second variance is to allow exterior storage more than twice the square footage of the principal building. That's one of the CUP standards. The third variance is to allow a 6-foot fence in the front yard. And the fourth is to allow a chain link fence. Interestingly, our code specifically allows only 3 types of fences, 2 of which are walls, not fences, masonry, brick, or wood. It does not allow chain link fence. Exterior storage is shown in that shaded area on this, so there would be a gate coming in from the existing parking lot, and then a second entrance coming off this cul-de-sac. There is existing right-of-way, but this is a right-of-way easement, so this is right-of-way, and he's got shown a 0 setback. We'll talk about that. But again, without the variances, you cannot approve the site plan and CUP. Variance number 1, as I said, the code says that you can't have storage in the front yard, and the front yard is this line. I just thought it would be helpful to draw that line. It's the front of the building. It also, strangely, in my opinion, can't be in the side yard. So the only place outside storage could be on this lot is in this area without a variance. This is where the septic is. So really, in order to use outside storage, he does need a variance. The second is the size of the exterior storage. As I said, he's got 31,000 square feet roughly of storage area. The existing building is 5,600 square feet, which the code then says the maximum amount of square footage he could have is twice that, 11,226 square feet. He's about 6 times, just for context, about what the code would allow. So again, using this lot does require both of those variances. The next 2 variances are not required to be approved. You could approve the site plan and CUP even if you denied these next 2. The variance number 3 prohibits a fence in the front yard, a 6-foot fence in the front yard. And as I said, this you can see these dots. This is the chain link fence. It comes, again, at a 0-foot setback in this zone. We did outline in the staff report, in order to meet the spirit, you could approve a variance but pull it back to the curb line, which is right here. That would not comply with the code still and would still require a variance, but it would be consistent with at least the edge of the parking lot. So that's something you could consider. Number 4 is a variance to allow a chain link fence. And this is actually kind of an interesting part of our code that I talked about in the staff report. This requires a variance to have a chain link fence, except that if you made it an 8-foot fence, you could do a chain link fence. And I'm not really sure the logic there. By CUP, you could get a chain link fence. So, you know, I think we've outlined conditions for approval and denial for you to consider for each of these variances, but it is very common to have a chain link fence with this type of outside storage. Because of the durability of that fence, wood fences, when you have heavy equipment, can sometimes be damaged. So the last thing I would note is that the city code does require, as part of the screening, not only the chain link fence, but landscaping around that storage area. And so the plans do show some trees along Johnson, but not on the other sides. And so we have included a condition requiring some landscaping on the north and the west. The commission could talk about, there is some tree removal that's happening that perhaps could be more strategic and save some trees rather than requiring new plantings, but in any case, the ordinance does include 10 standards for the conditional use permit approval. The staff report outlines sort of some findings of fact that you could use. If the standards have been met, the variances would also need to be granted. In the packet are the city engineer's comments, and if you should approve it, the draft resolution for approval does include compliance with the city engineer's memo. And again, this is a lot of variances, and so as I said, there's a combination of things that you could do. So there's the site plan, there's a conditional use permit for exterior storage, and there's the 4 variances. And really the first 2 you do have to approve in order to approve the CUP and site plan, but the second 2 you have some flexibility that you could modify conditions. For example, if you denied the 4th one for the chain link fence and said he had to put a board fence in, he could still do the project. He would just have to change his fence, if that makes sense. So you have 3 options tonight after you open the public hearing. You can recommend approval of the request. We've got a draft resolution. You can modify that, but it's a starting point for your discussion. You can deny it, and the staff report does include potential findings of fact that you could adopt. Or again, there's a combination of, you could find that some variance standards have been met, others have not. And I would just remind the commission that the variances are the application, that it really is the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that they meet those variance standards. That is the highest, one of the highest discretionary actions you have. So the applicant is here tonight as well, Madam Chair, and I know we'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any clarifying questions before the public hearing.
Okay, my head's spinning.
There's a lot, I know. You talked about a large packet, but there's a lot going on with this request.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing right now. So would anybody like to come and address the issues here? The applicant?
Is that property?
On this, yes, just on this property. Okay, do you guys, we still have the public hearing open right now. Are there any questions that you guys want to ask the applicant? I have to admit, this is complete.
What kind of business is it?
So, yeah, would you mind coming up, if do you mind? Sure. And just say your name, please, and your address.
Yeah, Dan McConnell, the address is 21476 Johnson Street, Northeast, East Bethel. I live in Princeton, but that's where the...
Okay.
We won't hold that against you.
It's not my choice, so.
And so it's dirt work or?
Yep, yeah, we do excavating. We typically don't have a lot of stuff there. Most of it's out on job sites unless we need to get it repaired or it's maintenance. And then part of the reason why we need such a big yard is we have a semi and lowboy. And in order to swing around and to get through, you need a pretty big area to make the corner. And then with the layout and where the garage door is on the shop or on the building, we would basically need to be able to swing in order to back in to work on any of our semis. So, which we don't have very many, but just makes more feasible sense that way.
Is the property vacant now?
No, we closed on it April 2nd. So we've pretty much just been utilizing the office and just some stuff that fits inside. And then with the chain link, if we need to go to 8 feet to get rid of that variance, we can for sure.
8 feet and no problem with the slats in it for screening purposes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were planning on doing that anyways.
Okay. I get, my question was based on what you were describing there. One of the bigger issues I take is the 6 times the exterior, or
It's
6, or 5, but
3 actually.
it's 3x.
Yeah, because the building square footage is.
Yeah, it's 6 times the building, 3 times what's allowed by code. That's
Yep,
good
okay,
clarification,
So 3
yes.
times what's allowed by code.
Sorry, yeah, I was referencing of the building, being
Yep.
at 6 versus the 2
Yep.
that's allowed. What you just described, though, was needing the area for turnaround. So I guess my follow-up question is, having the site available I don't see an issue with having more room than needed to have the area. To me, the storage comes down to the size of said items in comparison to the structure. So if the structure is, I forget off the top, or without digging into it, but for,
5,500 square
yeah,
feet
so
or
if it's
whatever.
5,500, but and we allow up to 2x of that, let's just round numbers, call it 10.
Yep.
If you're not exceeding 10, in my mind, I don't care if it's on this section or that section, as long as you're not exceeding 2,
Right.
then it's not as big of a deal for me, and you wanna chain link your whole side property, that's a different story, and I can get behind side storage due to the fact that the septic's in the rear, and you can't do anything there. I'd have a little bit bigger issue with giving you the allowability of, or granting a variance for the allowability to use all of that to pack it in with as much equipment as you can.
Yeah, no, that's.
But you see where we go with that, and that's how the devil gets into the details.
Yeah,
If we say yes to 6 of the building, or 3x of what the city allows,
Yep.
we've now given you that ability, and then that could potentially stay within a variance or within condition, or go away with conditional use. But
sure,
if we grant it for you, we set precedent for someone else, and so on and so forth. So
yeah.
if you think that the amount of square footage that your equipment total takes up, is that within that 2x, do you think, or is it more than that?
I would say somewhere in there between what we can fit inside it and what we can fit outside, but I would say less than 10% of the time would anything be there. Most of it's always out on job sites, so it might be there or might have a couple excavators there for a couple weeks until we go to the next one or something,
Yeah.
but it's not. And we order all of our pipe per job, that all gets delivered to the job, so it's not a lay down yard for any of our materials or anything either.
So if I was to say, if it was my voting on that, and if I had made a recommendation, but I did not grant the variance for the extra footage, or for the extra storage, would you still be able to do you think you fall within that too, or are you right
No,
close, or
we
you
wouldn't.
absolutely need more than 2?
Yeah, we need more than 2. Basically, with a semi, we would need to be able to loop around.
Yep.
And then on top of that, we need to be able to maneuver around and unload equipment and have room for that.
And I'm not saying take away the availability to have the space of 6 times the structure. I'm saying even though you have the space of the 6x, you only get to use 2x.
Oh, you're saying like be able to still do the yard with the fence and gravel and everything, but only utilize a certain amount of it?
Correct.
Yeah,
You have
that-
all the available space, but you only need
Yeah, that
the
would,
2x of the building. If your equipment falls within that, I don't see a need for a variance in requesting greater storage than 2x of the structure. And we can eliminate one of the variances, because just having the space available is different than utilizing all of the space.
oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be.
Did I say that
A-okay with
clear?
me, yeah.
No,
is that,
no, it makes a lot of sense. I was just gonna ask Kendra,
Yeah, thank
is
you.
that, you have,
I don't know
Some
how we
comments on
would
that.
monitor that.
well,
Um,
but as
once
a
the-
city, we've always been a complaint-driven process.
I
We've
mean,
had
the
people with greater
reality
storage.
is, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I have a husband. If I give you that much space, you're gonna fill that much space.
Yeah, I mean, we still
So-
need to be able to maneuver around.
Right,
You know,
so
drive through.
I understand the point, and we've talked about,
Mhm.
that too. But I think if you're comfortable with the fenced area, you're comfortable with the variance.
No.
Because once that is that,
I-
there's no way we're gonna see what's back there behind that chain link fence. So whether you are by default approving that variance, if you approved that fenced area, in my opinion.
But then we're
There's no
granting
way
him the
to-
ability to do that when we're not comfortable with that. By your statement. Just because he has 50,000 square feet and he only needs to use 10,000 of it.
So let me clarify. I still think you need the variance, but you can condition the variance on, you can only use 11,266 square feet of storage, and the rest must remain open for maneuverability.
and does that variance carry on to
Yeah,
the
it makes
next
it more
owner?
complex, I guess, but,
That would
Yes,
carry on to the next
The variance
owner,
one was with the land.
who might decide to really fill it up then.
Right.
and that's why I
But-
don't like the added variance of giving I don't mind him having the room, his land is his land, whether he turns it around on grass or class 5, what have you, but as long as the amount of his storage is not exceeding what's allowable.
But you're saying the variance is necessary, but it could be conditioned that he could only use the 11,000, 12,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is outside storage area when it's behind that fenced thing. And you can condition that variance to say you can only use a certain amount of that. I mean, without that, once that's fenced in, it does run with the land. It just becomes, I think, a problem that we have to monitor. So I think the more appropriate approach is to condition it on, you can only use the 11,000 square feet for storage, and the rest must remain open for maneuverability.
Right.
And he doesn't have to mark this up and say, this is the only place I'm gonna store stuff, because things change, right? I mean, you move things around. I just think that we're here tonight for the variance. To say we don't need a variance,
To me, I guess it's already implied in the code, so why are we adding something back in that's already there and then restricting that? That to me seems like more work than necessary and potentially opens it up.
yeah, well, obviously that's my professional recommendation. The planning commission can make their whatever recommendation you like.
Well, and actually, I like your solution, Kendra. I mean, you're the one that is stating that the variance is needed, but I would like to condition it so that it's not gonna be carrying on with the property.
Yeah,
How-
I have a hard time understanding that, but we can keep moving on.
Well, do you other gentlemen have anything on this particular variance? Because I've got some questions on the other ones too. No?
No, I don't.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little concerned about the chain link fence with the slats. So then, do you have neighbors? I'm sorry, I haven't driven
Yeah,
out there.
It's an industrial complex. The neighbor across the street does sand blasting, and then Rack Construction is right there, and then Cedar Creek Automotive, but nobody, I'm at a dead end, and the sand blasting guy stares at our place, but.
Okay, so you're thinking that it fits in with the neighborhood? Have you guys had a chance to look at it?
I know the area, but I guess to me, number 3 goes away. If he's already saying he's gonna go to 8 feet, then that's again another one less variance, one less thing to muddy the waters with.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify, to go to 8 feet, he needs a conditional use permit that we didn't publish for. So he would have to come back if we go that route, just so everybody's clear about that.
I'll go whatever the easiest route is.
It's up to the commission, but I just want to be clear that it doesn't go away, it just comes back with a different process.
Yeah. So, with our industrial parks, we're kind of trying to uplift the vision there. And, so I am a little concerned about the chain link fence and slats, but if that's what the neighborhood's doing. I guess
Yeah,
I'm fine.
actually, none of the neighbors in the area even have privacy fencing for any of their outdoor storage, so it'd be the only one. But it would look good. I wouldn't do anything that looks bad.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't want it looking like a junkyard
No,
with
no.
stuff behind it. Mr. Terry, yeah.
My concerns are more about where that is set back from the road than what type of fence it is.
Yeah, I guess it's just the industrial grade chain link fence, then has the slats in the middle of it, so you can't see anything, and then with the trees, you really wouldn't be able to see anything. With the setbacks, I believe we hired a surveying company to do a design work and everything, and they're at the utility easement, I believe, is what they said, based off of what they went off of. And the reason we had it at that is just to utilize as much space as we could, because in the west side of the property, with having to dig in the infiltration pond, it limits how far we can go back, so, but.
Being more forward is the preference, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we're limited with what we got, the stormwater plan and everything.
Kendra, what are your comments on the fence?
Yeah, I don't have the history for why the city doesn't allow chain link, and perhaps that's it, it's the aesthetic piece. But I do know that this is the B3 district, but it allows industrial type uses like D&D, and I do know that chain link fence is tougher with heavy equipment than a board fence. But, if this variance were denied for the chain link fence, he could just install a board fence that doesn't need a variance, or he could come back and ask for a conditional use permit to do a 6 to 8 foot, an 8-foot fence in the front yard, and that standard is lower. There's really, conditional uses are permitted uses. So it's really, you guys have been here longer and know more about why chain link fences aren't permitted. But I do know, to your point, there is outside storage that's not screened, and there is outside storage that's contained by chain link that doesn't have slats. So from a city perspective along our corridor, I think it's important, based on what your code says, to screen outside storage. So it's really, you know the history.
Yeah, and the thing about this property is it's pretty well screened by the environment that it's in, other than the, direct neighbors who are also businesses, but you can't see it from the highway. It's farm fields to the other side, woods, so to me, this isn't such a big deal in terms of the type of screening as just that it doesn't become a hazard, the placement of it for any utility or activities the city might want to do on that road.
Okay, do you guys have any other questions of our applicant?
No.
Okay. So I really thank you for coming up and answering our questions. And does anyone else have any comments that they'd like to come up on? Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing on this one. And let's have our discussion. First you guys talk, and then I'll ask you some questions. Anybody?
I went past the site. It's not, I don't think it's gonna deter the neighborhood and brings a business in. The place looks vacant now, the grass hasn't been cut, he'll be moving in, making it actually look better. The only thing I think that we should follow staff's recommendation on that front line. And I was trying to figure out here how much it is, but it's on page 37.
In line with parking lot versus the more forward line that he had.
I mean, he would be losing a little bit. I just can't tell from the thing if it's 5 feet or 3 feet but I just think it would be more consistent with the site and the street. And more than likely, someday the street's gonna continue on. And so then that would be straight all the way along for the future.
I concur with that assessment.
So that is that's variance
Here's
3.
Here's your difference. The yellow line should be the end of the utility, right? That's for no parking, public utility, and you're talking bringing it in here, so those are what, 4-foot pieces each, 4, 8, 12, 16 feet?
Is that what it is on this?
That's where my brain goes with it.
Yeah, I think it's just moving the fence over 10 feet. The dimensions on the plan aren't great, but it's at an 11-foot setback right here.
I guess
And
for me, I don't have any, like if it's within that yellow line where the utility easement is, I wouldn't.
It just gets pretty tight to the curb. You're not gonna be very far away, and more utilities are getting buried in the curb. Somebody's gonna come through and run more fiber in the sidewalk, or, in the boulevard. I would like to keep that boulevard to what it is, just like that drawing up there. I don't think that would impede he still could turn his truck in and go through.
Sure.
That's the only thing I would change from my perspective.
Kendra, do we have to make one motion and make all of our changes to the resolution all in one fell swoop?
Should.
Yeah, for better or for worse, that's how I prepared it for you. You certainly could break them apart if you'd like to, but the draft resolution does include everything in one item, but you could certainly take each variance
I think
one
that's
by
what we'll do,
one.
is we'll just go down the line. So it starts on page 42 of the packet, starting with variance 1. And that addresses the exterior storage and the amount of it. Does anybody want to change what's on the resolution? Scrap it all together? Or allow it?
I think I stated my point earlier, I don't see a need for variance 1 as it's already implied based on city code, and I think we're just creating more work and more things to follow. I mean, there'd be nothing wrong if he said, hey, I just want to fence my property and then just used 2x of the building. We're a complaint-driven program in the city. You know, and it's for them to follow the rules, not for us to sit and monitor. I just don't know why we would add another variance and more work to it and create precedence in something in the future if not needed when it's already implied. That's
I'm
my
leaning your
perspective.
way. I said I'm leaning your way.
Yeah.
Other
I
comments?
second the comment.
Okay. So we're just going to not require a variance.
Scratch variance 1.
Yep. Off of the resolution.
Or deny.
Okay.
Well, variance, 1, yeah, maybe you don't need any of them. Variance 1, just to be clear though, is allowing storage in the front yard.
Oh, then I thought we were talking about the square footage.
I thought we were too.
But if you wanna say, just put it in the rear yard, he's got plenty of room in his rear yard if he's only gonna have 12,000 square feet.
No, we're gonna want more. Right?
I thought we were aiming to allow for the side yard, which gives him the maneuverability that he needs.
That is
But
number
we're-
2.
But we're not exceeding the amount of allowable exterior square footage, and therefore the variance for the additional square footage.
That's the variance
was
number
not
2.
need- Okay, that's 2.
Okay, so variance number 1, we are going to
In side yard.
put it in as it is. Scratch number 2.
So approve 1,
Mhm.
deny 2.
Or not deny it,
Or
just
remove.
scratch it,
Yeah.
remove it. Okay, and then number 3 is the variance prohibits fences of 6 feet in height or less in the required, okay. It says requested a variance which prohibits fences of 6 feet in height or less in the required front yard. The fence for the proposed exterior storage is located 0 feet away from the front lot line or right-of-way easement where 78 is required. And then the resolution is written that finds it acceptable for the reasons.
So this is Commissioner Jorgensen's comment that this is the one you would say you would approve it for a 34-foot setback, which would bring it to that curb line.
Are you-
If that's
and
what
you're
you
okay
wanted,
with
that
Yeah,
was
that's-
just,
What I would like to see, but
And I guess now I'm questioning, is it the front curb line or the rear curb line? Because there's 2 different ones. Right? See, like this is the utility line. Here's the front line. There's the back line. That's why I'm
Oh,
seeing
I
such a
thought it-
distance.
when you
You're-
look down this other drawing, it shows the front one, where your cursor is right now.
This one, yeah,
Correct.
okay, the forward one, because that's the
Forward,
one I
yes,
saw farther
correct.
back was this.
Correct.
Okay, so now we're only talking about a 4-foot difference there.
Right.
If I turn the road around.
Yes, yeah, there you go.
Here, let's go forward. Okay, now we're only talking about 1 curb section. That. Okay, that I can get behind.
Yeah,
I was thinking
there we go. No,
I felt like you were
yeah.
taking a lot
No,
away
no,
on the
I
other
was
side.
going to this curb line.
Okay, that makes sense.
We were looking at the north curb line over here.
okay, not the staff recommendation. You want to move it out closer to the street and keep the jog in it. We recommended just bringing it where it hits the
Oh, she was
street
talking the
easement.
inside one. You were talking the
Right, to
outside.
just make this straight fence line. It just seemed to
The
accomplish.
one in
it.
her drawing is this one back here.
Okay.
And what you and I were just discussing
Yes,
was
right.
this one, the more forward.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's splitting the difference, really.
Right.
Yeah, I can't see it very well on the screen, but you mean this line up here,
there.
wherever that is. It doesn't
The
really show.
the whiter part to the right of the cursor there.
Because then it'll be a true boulevard.
That's about 4-foot difference.
Could be a little more
Yeah.
curve
thickness of it.
Could be fine.
Would you still
So,
have the
Corey, what you
swingability
think?
if it was in a couple feet, for about 5 feet from where you were thinking?
Yeah, I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay. You're okay with?
Yeah,
This
we're on
one?
the same page over here
Okay,
anyway.
great. So number 3 is okay, and then number,
Well,
No,
no?
It's moving the,
with the more forward, how would we word that?
the
To-
parking lot in front of the existing structure,
Curb line,
curb line,
the nearest curb line to the front of the structure.
to the road.
But just to be clear, you're now moving it closer to the street than he's proposing if you line it up with the curb line next to the parking.
No, his was on the utility easement, so like I'm looking at page 47 in the packet. The red/yellow line is where he's proposing it, up to the utility line, if I'm understanding this correctly. Staff recommendation was to bring it in on the north side of the entrance, matching the curb line. Corey and I are discussing on the south line of the entrance, that inside curb line.
Right, but what I'm saying is that's closer than he's proposing it today. Here's his fence today. And staff, I was saying move it to this curb line. And you're saying move it out closer to the
Oh,
street?
No, then in that case, no, we would, again, not needed then.
I think what we're looking at is figure 2 in the staff presentation is what we're wanting to achieve.
Right.
The-
On page 37 still?
Yes,
Yeah.
on page 37.
No, Kendra, you're right, we're discussing moving it forward, but based on inaccurate information. So in that case, I'm not opposed to where he has it just sitting, but that's just me. I'd rather not see it go in farther to reduce his turnability.
Right.
So what are you wanting to do on variance 3
Approve
that
it.
we have?
I say do it.
Okay.
Well, this figure 2, are we all looking at figure 2?
Right, the one that's up on the
Yes.
screen currently.
So the fence line is beyond the parking lot curb then, right? The one, I'm talking existing building. It is, I guess if you look there, there's only shown 3 spaces, but.
Yeah, this doesn't, it's cut off too much, so you can't see the curb line that's like right here.
Okay, there's this note here, but
So that curb then in the
this line is.
top
loose.
right corner
Oh, no,
then,
here, that's the fence.
is marking as the line to where the fence would be. Moving north to
Oh,
south.
so the staff wanted it moved.
They wanted to come into this, he's right here, and they wanted to come into there to match that curb line and then continue on. Whereas, I guess I was fine with it on the line that it's at, in fact, it already bumps in here at the, not cul-de-sac.
Yeah, leave it.
No, so nothing, so no variance needed, or we would scratch
Yeah.
variance 3. Or no, he needs
Scratch it.
approval for
Yeah,
3,
he
sorry,
needs it.
we've gone back and forth so
Yeah,
many
we're
times
gonna,
now.
actually, Dan, we're gonna call you up in just a minute, I think, and make sure that you're clear and we're clear. And it's all workable for you, okay. So 3 we're leaving in as is. 4 is about the chain link fence with the slats. And I'm hearing that you guys are okay with that.
I'm still not clear on what you've done with 3. I thought we were looking at doing that with that yellow or that red line there. Are you saying that we're putting it back to where
3.
it's drawn by the applicant?
Right.
So it's 0 setback?
Correct.
I'm not on board with that.
Okay,
I'm advocating for that, where that red line is.
I thought we were approving where the red line is, or we were okay with where the red line is.
Right, that's what I thought we were, but they're saying that they want it without that red line, but back to where the applicant drew it, right to the 0 lot line, or a setback line. If I'm understanding correctly, what they're proposing is
Coming in
removing that
4 or
red
5.
line and putting it to where the applicant has it farther to the east, which is right on the edge of the setback or the easement rather.
Kendra, from our comments, do you think we have a good picture of what's going on with that variance?
Yeah, so,
Really?
it's confusing, and I think what's confusing a little bit is that, this dark line is the right-of-way line, but this is the right-of-way easement. And, this fence, the applicant's surveyor erroneously showed a setback of 11 feet from, because he measured it from the easement. This is the easement. So this fence is really at 21 feet from the lot line here and 0 from the lot line here, because this is the right-of-way line. So moving it really just brought it closer to creating sort of a street edge that aligned with this curb line. That's what we were thinking, but still gave him the bulk of the storage that he wanted. And I do hear sort of a split where I hear a desire to move this back and a desire to leave it as it is. So I do think we need clarity on that third variance where the majority's at for the recommendation.
And the red line is where he wants it.
No,
The red
No,
line's
that's
where
staff
staff was
recommendation.
recommending. These dots here are where he's proposing it.
Okay,
If
okay.
you can see that gray
That's,
area,
yeah, that's what we were unclear on for a minute.
Yeah, I was not understanding the drawing there of
Not
the
either.
setback.
it might help if you give context to why that location is important as regards to the easement.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's a little confusing. It is outside of the easement in this zone. It is on the edge of the street easement here at a 0 setback. But it's a street easement. There's no drainage and utility easement beyond this. So Public Works does not like this sitting here, but it's not in anything. Eventually, Johnson's gonna be extended and this easement will be deleted. But there's this easement right here, that's the D&U easement, and he is outside of that. So what I was trying to do, and I appreciate that I didn't do it well, is I was trying to create a front setback line by moving it back. And maybe the landscape one shows it a little, no, it doesn't. But
Yeah, that
that's what
shows
I
it
was
better.
trying to accomplish by that. That was the reason to put it in front of you for consideration. But the fence is still in the front yard either way. And it is outside of all D&U easements.
So you're saying as he proposed it, it doesn't interfere with any utility easement?
Correct.
Oh, then I'm back with you guys.
Yeah.
The way the applicant,
Yes, so 3 would be okay.
Yeah.
To leave in as read.
Are we all in agreement? Maybe?
I think we are.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a tough one. I mean, this is an important thing for Dan, and
And this is why we,
that's why we're taking the time to do it, right? Okay. So we're all in agreement, I think.
Yep.
On 3 is staying, and 4 is the chain link fence with the slats.
I'm good with the chain link fence at 6 feet with the slats.
Yeah, so am I in that area. It's clearly hidden from the corridor. It's tucked in there. I think 6 feet would be suitable.
And it's based, that okay with it is based on the context of the neighborhood. It's not like anywhere in the city that would be great, but in this particular location, I think it's fine.
just for a discussion point, and any argument for 8 feet over 6 feet? I'm just thinking if it's industrial equipment, 8 feet might screen better than 6.
Screen from what is my question, because there's nothing really to screen it from except the guy across the street.
Neighboring businesses, I guess, traffic flow from those businesses.
They're at,
Keep prying eyes out of whatever is behind there, and people don't see, oh, look at that big piece of equipment, let's jump in.
well, that would be at his discretion if he wanted to do that, but I don't think we should
Between 6 and 8.
make him do that.
Not to exceed 8, yeah, I get that.
Between 6
Yep.
and 8.
Like I said, that's why I said for conversation.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so I think what we have is a resolution almost exactly that you wrote up. So the variance number 1, we're just gonna keep it as is. We are proposing dropping the variance number 2 completely. And
Yeah,
number
I think you are recommending approval of the resolution as drafted with the recommendation that variance number 4 is unneeded because the applicant promises to comply, and I will run that by the city attorney before it goes to council, but I will share your recommendation.
Variance 2.
Variance 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if you don't mind, can I bring the owner back up? Do I have to open up the public hearing?
No,
No,
not
you
for
can ask
discussion.
him as
Okay,
the applicant.
Dan, if you wouldn't mind coming back up, please. I just want to make sure that you're okay, that if you think that you can comply with this, and if you're understanding what we even talked about.
Yeah, no, I think we can make it work.
Yeah, keeping the amount of equipment in the available space, which would be 6x the building, within the 2x
Right, yeah.
allowability that is already in the code
Correct.
as
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and I think, part of our concern is just that we don't want this variance to go on with the other owners, and we've all talked about.
Yeah, I
So-
don't plan on selling anytime soon, I just bought it, so.
No, but
Yeah.
it also creates precedence for any other businesses that would also say, well, hey, wait a minute, you gave them X, I should be able to, why not?
Yeah, no.
So that's why I'm trying to avoid creating any future precedents on other things, but based on your original description of what you needed the available space for was not to fill that much, so I don't wanna grant that much availability for any future X.
Yeah,
So-
no, that's fine, and actually,
Yep.
when we when I came here to talk about it, there is no requirement, as long as it's not outside storage, so it sounded like I could have just paved the whole thing or done all class 5, but since I wanted to fence it in, it would be outside storage, so that's why I filed for the variance. Not that I needed the whole area for storage, but the area you needed to
Sure.
basically utilize it,
Do you foresee any issues with what we're discussing then?
No, I don't believe so.
Great, well, I thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
This seems to us like maybe it's a lot of discussion, it's nothing compared to what you put into it, I know that.
Yeah.
So, this is
Yeah.
important to you, and we understand that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But
Okay,
a lot of
thank you.
moving pieces.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, does anyone want to do a motion on this? If not,
I wouldn't word it right.
I'll make the motion then. So, I move that we will present the resolution as has been prepared almost completely, but we will be dropping the variance number 2, which is on page, what page is that?
42?
43.
3.
43. So, where it says, whereas the applicant has requested a variance from section 24, subdivision 4.A2 of the zoning ordinance, which limits exterior storage maximum square footage to 2 times square footage of the principal building. The 31,450 square feet of exterior storage is proposed to be roughly 5.6 times bigger than the existing 5,613 square feet building on the lot, and then it goes on to whereas. We are dropping that section.
Second.
Any more discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And we have, so thank you again, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
Sharon, just for clarification, a lot of times the only reason why we ever kept the public hearing open with the owner was just because we've had so many things in the past where there was back and forth.
Yeah.
Otherwise, with the owner, we used to, in longer history, we would close it, then have the owner come up and address, and then there'd always be these back and forth follow-up questions, so we just started having them do it at the end to keep it open instead of
Oh,
reopening it.
absolutely, yeah. I just didn't know if I had to open it up again or not. Okay, so the next item is going to be of Sherco Construction, so, and who's presenting that one?
I am. All right, this is a public hearing for a concept plan review for a 3-lot subdivision along 217th Avenue Northeast on the north side of that road. The applicant is Tom Carlisle of Sherco Construction. He's applied for a concept plan review for Cliffs Anderson Acres. He's proposed a 3-lot subdivision. This property is 1 lot. It's zoned and guided rural residential. The property To the west is rural residential, the property to the east is a part of Linwood Township, and the property to the north is the Mickelson Wildlife Management Area. This property, because it borders that wildlife management area, is also within the significant natural environmental area overlay. This property is 19.44 acres. The applicant is requesting feedback on the concept plan before applying for a rezoning, PUD preliminary plan, and preliminary plat, which are the next steps in the platting process to subdivide this lot. The city's discretion in approving or denying a concept plan is based on whether the proposed subdivision meets the development standards outlined in the city code and comprehensive plan. There are many standards, and they're included in the packet. The discussion on that. The Anoka County Highway Department has reviewed the subdivision. Their comments are in the packet, and they've noted that they would want 60 feet of right-of-way for the full length or full width of the parcel. This is the concept plan. It is 3 single-family homes on 3 lots. The concept plan does meet the development standards for lot width, lot area, and density outlined in the city code for rural residential development. Staff in our review has found that the proposed 3-lot subdivision does not meet the subdivision standards outlined by the comprehensive plan. So for a subdivision, it must meet the requirements for density in the city code and the comprehensive plan, and this is not meeting that requirement in the comp plan. The comprehensive plan establishes an average density standard of 1 unit per 10 acres. This proposed subdivision has a density of 1 unit per 6.48 acres. Staff recommends that the applicant update the plan before applying for a rezoning, PUD preliminary plan, and preliminary plat. Staff would find that a 2-lot subdivision meets these requirements, or the applicant could review the flexible residential development standards provided by the Met Council and bring the subdivision into compliance with those. The Planning Commission has 2 options. You could recommend approval based on the applicant's submission, the staff report, and other evidence to recommend approval for the concept plan for the subdivision with conditions. These conditions may be that the ordinance standards would be met for a 2-lot subdivision, and a draft resolution has been included in the packet. On the other hand, the Planning Commission could recommend denial based on the applicant's submission, contents of the staff report, and other evidence. The Planning Commission could recommend denial of the request if they find that the development standards have not been met, and the Commission should clearly identify findings of fact for a denial. Findings of fact have been provided in the draft resolution.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing for this item. And would anyone like to speak to the issue? Is the applicant here? So first of all, we'll just kind of ask you to say a few words, and then we may have some questions for you. And could you please state your name?
Sure. My name is Jason Rude. I'm with E.G. Rude & Sons. We're the land surveyors working on this project. We're Sherco Construction. Address is 6776 Lake Drive, Lino Lakes, Minnesota, for our company.
Okay.
Just a little bit of background. We did our due diligence prior to preparing the sketch plan, and that we had the wetlands reviewed. There are no wetlands on site. We had soil borings completed for all 3 parcels, and this is a very buildable parcel. The piece that I take exception with is the comp plan density of 1 unit per 10 acres. I don't understand this. I've got 3 decades of plats in East Bethel that I've worked on that have used a 2.5 acre density, and this feels to me like the goalpost is getting moved. I don't understand it. Doesn't feel right. There's nothing that has been done consistently with this in the past. I've seen a series of changes in staff over the last 3 decades. I've worked with all of them well, but this is out of left field to me. I don't understand it.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
It doesn't seem consistent with anything that I've worked on in the past. Not at all. I don't understand why do we have RR standards if we're gonna say that it's a 1 unit per 10 acre density? Why does RR exist? To me, this is wrong, straight up wrong.
Okay, and you've had that discussion with staff?
Yes.
Okay.
They identify when or what changed then from your perception
They're
in the
saying
past?
that the city has operated incorrectly for years. And inconsistent with the comp plan, right? That's what she's saying. So I look at the comp plan, and the comp plan, I think it has a 2020 resolution number. So this comp plan's been in place for roughly 5 years, right? So that means the last 5 years of plats I've done have been wrong? It totally blows it up.
Okay, so, you're wanting 3
Yeah.
things here, and we're,
Yeah.
as a city, we're recommending 2.
Yeah, it follows the RR zoning. I drove through one of my plats on the way here tonight that we built last year that was approved under these standards, and they're building homes. What changed?
Okay.
They were told it's an oops, that the city's been doing it wrong for 30 years? I don't buy it.
Okay. And are you the owner or the developer? Or are you both?
Neither.
What's
I'm the
your
land
interest?
surveyor. I'm the land surveyor, so that's why I have a vested interest. The applicant is here and is more than willing to speak to this same issue. But this doesn't sit well with me at all. I've worked on, my name is on many of these plats on the walls in here. My name's Jason Rood, and very much worked with the city for decades. And to have this curveball thrown is wrong,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions for the surveyor before we go on to the applicant?
No, I appreciate it, and I can respect the comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and is the applicant here? Would you mind coming up and talking a little bit? And we may have some questions for you. If you could please say your name too.
Tom Carlisle, Sherco Construction,
Okay.
21501 Humber Street, Wyoming, Minnesota.
Okay, so you're the owner of the land and the developer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, what would you like to say?
Well, I think Jason said it all.
Okay.
He didn't leave me much meat on the bone there, but he said it all. I mean, the facts are the facts, that we do meet what the code says, and now we're bringing up a comprehensive plan that's into the picture. There was some talk about the SNEEP overlay. I don't know if that's in the comp plan or if that's actually an ordinance, but the property is all high. There's no wetlands, so it's not even a marginal site at all. So, I mean, it should be as easy as it gets, but I don't know.
How long have you owned the property?
I bought it about, probably 3 months ago. And I did email with Kendra before I bought it. I have those emails, but they don't, I mean, like I said, Jason said it all, so.
Yeah, I mean, that actually that gets to my question is, when you bought this, did you have the impression that you could put 3 in?
Absolutely.
And what gave you the impression?
Well, I can give you the copies of the emails that I had with Kendra and so forth, and again, it's in your current code, 2.5 acre minimum, so much frontage on the road, which we exceed, which should be a good thing, I would think.
Okay,
So, no, I didn't do it blindly,
yeah.
and this
So it was
isn't my first go-around.
So it was only just recently that was brought to your attention after the
Yeah,
fact?
once we got this, what was it, just a Friday or Thursday, whatever day it was. And I knew that Ms. Gerard was headed this direction from some previous emails. I didn't know why exactly until we got this, so. But.
Okay.
So therefore, that's why we did all the, the borings on 3 lots and did everything, because to our knowledge, the rules or the ordinances never changed. It's just.
Which still
Staff
technically
changed.
haven't.
That's right.
It's
they
just
haven't.
not in compliant with our
No,
with our
not
comp
there.
plan.
That's right. And your comp plan Again, I don't like to talk legal, but I mean, my attorney tells me that that's not in play and this is an ordinance. Yeah. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. Glenn, or Brian, or Corey?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused about this too. We have a zoning ordinance that, as has been stated, permits a 2.5 density for rural residential. The comprehensive plan guides our zoning, but it doesn't supersede our zoning and our ordinances. And the ordinances permit 2.5 density, so I'm a bit confused about that as well.
Okay, well, we'll have some questions.
How many acres is the site total?
19.44, I believe, and the lots are, what, 6.28 or something like that.
They're all averaged out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So,
Okay,
and it's open field, so, and no wetlands, some nice roll to it. We've got some trees on the perimeter. The wildlife refuge is in the back, yes, that's true. We're not encroaching on that or anything like that.
okay.
Okay.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
close the, oh,
No,
go ahead,
no.
sorry. Please come up and state your name and your address. And had you signed the sheet yet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
My name is Kay Anderson. I live at 4819 217th Avenue. I'm the neighbor. I sold the property to the guy. Okay. I had no idea that this was part of the SNA because the only map that I found that showed the SNA, and unfortunately one of my brothers swiped it out of this packet when I showed it to my family the other day. But I have been to the state's website, the Metro Council's website, the Watershed District's website, the East Bethel City website to print out maps. None of them show this with that SNA designation on it. There's one, the one my brother swiped, that shows the woods as part of the SNA, and the 100-year-old farm fields are not Oak Savannah. And the latest stuff that came out from the state in 2021 shows it's no longer Oak Savannah because it's grown in that part of the area. If you go to the other part of the farm, my brother got a letter from the county for his 80 acres, which connects to Bucks Pond, and he's been told that's Oak Savannah, and they're interested in talking to him about that. I didn't get that letter. So the next acre is 20 acres. It's got the farmstead house on 10, and the other 10 I'd like to break off so I have money to pay to fix up my house so I can sell my house because it's too much for me to take care of. There's too many oak trees falling down. So the woods are no longer Oak Savannah. They're mixed hardwood, mixed wood, probably 60% maple, 20% cherry, and 10% oaks, which are falling over because they're all big and old, and the new oaks have not regenerated because they don't grow in this climate. And then the rest is a little bit of pine and stuff. So I too was taken back when I went to split my farmstead 10 off the 20 and was told I need to do a PUD.
Was that just recently?
Yeah, I
Okay.
need to do a PUD to split the 20 into two 10s. And hey, my woods are a beautiful thing, and they're not going to get taken down by anybody. I fought with my brothers for years who have the maple syrup operation. You cannot cut down the dead trees. That's where the pileated woodpeckers live. I'm going with the power company now under the power lines. That's where the indigo bunting has its thing in the raspberry bushes. The wrens are in the piles of wood in the front. Ask me what the bird is, I've seen it. Okay, so I'm not looking for somebody to come into my property and raise all the trees or everybody. I'm looking for somebody who wants to have a beautiful piece of woodland that has the most unique birds and has the deer and the whatever that walk through. It gets to the roads, pretty close to where the woods are on the other side of the road, so they can go past the monk's house and make it to the big swamp. from the big swamp to the north to the big swamp to the south.
Okay, so
I
what,
get all that, so, but it's very confusing to me that none of these maps show that you have to know that you have to go to some little space in here that's not shown on the map to find out that your property is affected and has to be a PUD to split a 20-acre into two 10-acre plots and pay the $15,000 or whatever it is to do that. So there's a lot of confusion here. I also am confused,
okay,
and I would appreciate it because on the other side of in Linwood, there's 21 houses on 60 acres. That's right? Yeah. I was cheering for 3 houses on 20 acres.
okay, so that's,
Okay.
my question is, so you're in support of the 3 acre?
I'm in support of it because.
I mean, as a neighbor, you're not
As a
objecting?
neighbor, I'm gonna have one house on 10 acres because that's what I want, right?
Mhm.
So, I'm a little bit confused with the long process and all of how inaccessible the information is that your property is covered by this particular thing, because who looks at SNA when you're not designated as an SNA on any map?
Okay.
That's my point. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Thanks.
thank you, Mary. Kay, right? Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to this subject of the subdivision with 3 parcels in it? Nobody in the audience, we are going to close the public hearing, and now we're going to have some discussion. And ladies, thank you for your patience over there. What do you think?
Well, this is Grace's project, but I want to just clarify something. So Minnesota state law, the Minnesota statutes say you have to adopt a comprehensive plan and you have to comply with the Met Council rules. We don't like it. It's some people might say an unfunded mandate, but that's the law. You adopt the comprehensive plan, and then your zoning ordinance is required to implement your comp plan, not the other way around. So if you have a comp plan that says 1/10, you have to have a zoning ordinance that does that. We don't know why your zoning ordinance doesn't, so we reached out to the city administrator and the city attorney to say, what's the skinny? Because this is not great, that we have a code that directly conflicts with our comprehensive plan. And so that discussion said the same thing. The comp plan, in fact, I think every land use attorney that I work with and have for 30 years will tell you in Minnesota, in the 7-county metro area, the comprehensive plan takes precedent over the zoning ordinance. And so the zoning ordinance has to match the comp plan, not the other way around. We're bringing it forward because we are also concerned. We certainly understand Jason's story about having done umpteen projects in East Bethel. We don't doubt that, but what we're saying is our job is to tell you what it is today and what the results of violating the comprehensive plan standards are and the Met Council rules are, and then let the council make a decision about how to proceed. When you are in violation of your comprehensive plan, there are potential consequences from Met Council withholding funding and things like that. We may decide as a city that we don't care, but it's our job to tell you what the law says and give you our best advice in consulting with the city attorney and the city administrator. We don't disagree, though. This is something that should be corrected one way or the other. So if our density is 1/10, our RR should not say it's 1/2.5.
Right.
What the reason that we included the flexible design guidelines in the packet is because I suspect some of you may not remember those are in the comprehensive plan, and that is a tool to get more density. That's a tool that our comp plan allows you to do to get some more density. It doesn't work well in the rural areas, and I don't think the applicant is probably interested in that, although I don't know if he and Grace have talked about it, but it's some information. So this is a concept plan. It's not approving or denying anything. It comes through to you so we can talk about this. It comes through to the council so they can have that policy discussion and move from there. Does that provide context, at least, for why Grace's staff report says what it does?
It does for me. Even though I'm with Glenn that from what we've done in the past, that you've been able to shift things around underneath the, the comprehensive plan is this great big umbrella, and then the little zoning, you shift things around, and it's okay to put 3 that are less than 10 acres here and more acreage in other places. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say that the comprehensive plan is a mechanism foisted upon us by Met Council that we would like to have, as a city, nothing to do with, speaking from my perspective at least, that we have to go through a lot of time and energy periodically to update. And they have this council has no vested interest in the city. They have their own grandiose ideas of turning everything into high-density housing, and they have their own agenda, and they were actually only started as a means to deal with water in the metropolitan area. And their mandate has just gone way over the top. They're not elected. We are a city. We are reasonable people, and we've been working with standards in our zoning ordinances we spend a lot of time to create that work for developers, for residents. We're not trying to please a elite group that has nothing to do with what's going on here. So I'm not really moved by the argument that we have to follow our zoning ordinance has to follow. It's a guide that we create to help us make our decisions, but to me, legally or whatever, and that's, I'm just speaking on my own behalf here, our legal things that we respond to are the zoning ordinances. If we want to change our zoning ordinance to reflect that, we have to have meetings and discussions and do that. But at this time, we created a zoning ordinance. Everybody's been following that, and it's not fair to the applicant or to anyone else until we change that zoning ordinance to say that's no longer valid. We have to go to this comprehensive plan. There you have it.
Okay, there you have it. Any other?
Again, not an attorney, not legal advice, from my own basic research. I really, and I agree. I've been through a couple of comp plans now, in 2010 and 18 or whatever it was. And, yeah, to me, the comp plan has always been the long term, the vision. It's a guideline. It was guiding us towards what they thought urban sprawl, et cetera, was going to bring or do. At the end of the day, if our code reads one thing and we have precedents, I'm in line to lean on A, the precedents, and 2, the code. And if we haven't updated it, then we need to, obviously, yes, I agree. A correction on one way or the other needs to be made at a future point. But at this moment in time, we have a conflict. And in the world of conflicts, if anybody's asking my opinion, we go with the code over the comp plan, because if the code was supposed to be updated and it wasn't and it hasn't, then in my mind, we're obligated to follow the code that we have in place, because that's what our residents would be going by, is the code, not the comp plan. The repercussions on that are on the city. That's not
And the lawyers
not
can
the
figure that out.
applicant.
Yeah.
Especially when they've been guided to that.
Corey or Brian?
Yeah, it's, the city has erroneously approved subdivisions in the past, but like you said, that's precedence. I'd like to fall in line with the comp plan, but if we've gone past it in the past, I don't see why we should draw the line all of a sudden. Is it possible to request amendments or changes to the comprehensive plan?
Well, that comes in at the end of the decade, yeah. It's a 10-year thing that we do. I can't remember the last one.
The thing is, the city designs the comp plan, right? The city designs it, they submit it, it gets approved or not. So really, the onus was on us when we designed the comp plan and submitted it.
Yeah, but it won't get approved. The Met Council requires no more than 10 units per acre in the rural area, period. But again, for tonight, I'm not speaking for Grace, but we share your concerns about how we got here tonight, but it's our job to bring these forward. So you can certainly say, based on what we've done in the past, we think a 3-lot subdivision should be approved. Now, the next part, and Grace can talk more about this, is the significant natural resource area, which is also in the code as well as the process. Here's another one we might talk about tonight that we don't like what the code says, but it is what it says. And so we can talk a little bit about that, because I think it is important that the applicant understands that process is not a simple subdivision. And again, it is not good practice to ignore the code or the comp plan. So do you want to talk a little bit about what this is, why we have it, and what the process is?
Yes.
Please, just to clarify.
So the significant natural environmental area overlay, Kendra and I have tried to really track down kind of how this came to be with the city, and there's not a great paper trail on that, determining how certain parcels were put into this overlay and how certain parcels were excluded. This parcel is in that overlay, and that means that additional steps are required to subdivide it. As noted, a PUD is required to subdivide parcels for development in this overlay. So the applicant would need to do a PUD concept plan. This would also need to get rezoned to a PUD. We need a PUD preliminary plan and a preliminary plat before doing the PUD final plan and the final plat. So it's several steps in addition to the typical platting process, because our city code states that when you have a property that's in this overlay area, you have to follow the development standards for a PUD. Again, this is an area where it's many steps, but that's what the code says currently.
So, just to be crystal clear, so you're saying that that applies to this,
This parcel and then
also.
several, as mentioned by Kay Anderson, several parcels along this this road, yes, are in that overlay. It's noted on our GIS that's accessible on the city website. We have the GIS map that has that overlay on it. But yes, this parcel is.
Right. But I'm thinking that we really don't have to address that ourselves right now, do we? I mean, we can say either that we think that three pieces in here would be fantastic and recommend it. And we actually don't even have to address that overlay, because that's not our job anyways, is it? That in the end, if it doesn't comply to that, it kind of goes to a stop anyways, doesn't it?
Yes, those are future steps. So tonight, yeah, you're just addressing the concept plan as presented. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, the good thing about the SNE is that the PUD, I would say, does give us a little more ability to be flexible on density. I think you're still not in compliance, but there's some language in that zoning district that maybe we
Yeah,
can.
but we're not
play with
even
as
there
well.
yet.
But I
No,
can't imagine
yeah.
this is the first time there's ever been a conflict between a code and a comp plan, and I would assume, like anything, finding reasonable solution in the middle is probably best practices.
Yeah, it's important to raise it because I have two cities where, again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole tonight, where we didn't talk to the Met Council, but the Met Council got involved and without being asked, and councils were not able to move forward with projects that we were trying to move forward with. So it's just important that we don't want to change our comp plan right now in the middle of this. We're going to have to do that in a couple years anyway. So we want to find a solution that makes sense. And so ultimately, the council needs to weigh the risk rewards and make a decision. And I think
Exactly.
I have a sense of how that might happen, but it's our job to lay those out, right?
Sounds good.
Sure.
Okay.
If we're looking for a reasonable solution, I'm looking at that aerial map and wondering how could that particular parcel be in an SNE overlay when you've got this big development area to its immediate right. You've got nothing on that parcel
To the north.
I mean, it's all cleared, yeah. So what are we talking about? We're talking about I mean, I love nature, I live on Cedar Creek. I'm very concerned about keeping that a traffic flow for animals. This is not that. It borders to the north, something like that. So that makes sense why that would be on that overlay. Perhaps to the south, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But that particular parcel, if anything, should be an exception to that, just on the nature of what it is, and also what it is to the east of it.
And across from it is the Buddhist temple.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's our
The
understanding it was
applicant was trying to come up and give reference.
established by Anoka County Conservation District, the DNR and the Met Council. I think we were told that these are these areas, and that's, we suspect why this ordinance was adopted. As Grace said, the paper trail's a little bit light, but that's what the code says, is that this came from them, and in part it's to protect areas next to these native areas. We agree. We looked at it too and said, what's the significant natural resource? And my suspicion is these agencies wanted it to be restored to some native vegetation. I don't know.
Well, they should buy the property and do what they want.
Look, I don't know if you were here when this section of the code was adopted. I wasn't, so I don't have the context. We did our best to find it. Our job tonight is to say, this is what it says.
Sure. And we appreciate that, and that's what you're paid for, right? Okay, Tom, did you want to come up? If you have something to say, just please do it in the microphone.
Just a question then, I guess, if we're gonna go down the road of going through this PUD process. You know, it's spelled out as a 3-step process for the SNEA PUD concept plan review. That concept plan would look no different than what you're looking at today. I don't wanna come back here for another concept plan review.
Okay.
Honestly, you know, what's gonna change? Nothing. Nothing will change. From an environmental standpoint, this is agricultural land. There's already one curb cut that's already there. There will be 2 additional curb cuts added at the county's discretion of where they want it. But we're gonna have a preliminary plat, we're gonna have a final plat. If we need to make mention of a rezoning to PUD through that process and can do it simultaneously, doesn't sound bad. But to come back for another concept plan review, I would like that to suffice for tonight.
Okay. Well, I think that you're going to probably get a pretty easy recommendation coming from our commission. But this is a great place for you to have the floor to say your things. The next time will be at council meeting, but they don't have like a public hearing like this. So there's a public forum where you have 3 minutes to say something. Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion on this?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the lot split as presented with.
From the applicant?
Yeah, of the applicant. And I don't know what other wording I would need to add to that.
I know, I was trying to find that also.
Basically, I mean, that's what it is.
So the motion is to approve the applicant's request.
Yeah, for the split into 3 lots as designated here.
Okay.
Before a second, and try to make any amendments, does it make sense to try to add in his last comments of if an additional PUD, if this worked, if tonight sufficed as, I have no idea. Oh, you're nodding in approval then.
Yeah.
I would say let's add that piece to save them the trouble and bring in the legalities, or check the boxes of the legalities that we had a additional one for planned unit development. Does that make sense where I'm going with that?
Okay, Tanner, thanks a bunch for that.
All right, I accept the amended comments. Tanner.
Thank you.
And you ladies have the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay. So then this is going to the city council on what date, do you know?
June 9th.
June 9th?
June 9th, yeah.
Okay, and again, this is just a recommendation. the public hearing is kind of done, but there's a public forum.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you for your time and understanding as we work through it.
All right. Everything okay? Okay, so the next item is on Greg Underdahl for garage size metal siding and impervious surface. So who's doing this one?
That'll be me. All right, this is a public hearing for variances, 3 different variances, one for a single car garage, one for impervious surface coverage within the Shoreland Overlay District, and one for metal siding at 138 Laurel Road Northeast. Greg Underdahl is the applicant for these 3 variances. He is proposing to build a single-family home on this property. It's a through lot. It has 60.5 feet of frontage to the west and 60.5 feet of frontage to the east. The property is within the Coon Lake Beach neighborhood. It's zoned Coon Lake residential. It's also guided Coon Lake. The property is 0.27 acres, and it is within the Shoreland Overlay District. Coon Lake is just to the north. If you can see on that image, it's that blue line, or the blue portion at the very north of that. The applicant is requesting 3 variances. The first variance is to allow a 12 by 34 foot single car garage. This garage would total 408 square feet. The city code requires a 24 foot by 24 foot garage. This is a typical 2-car garage totaling 576 square feet. So the applicant is proposing a narrower garage with more depth. The second variance is to allow an impervious surface coverage of 27.6% of the lot area. The city code currently limits impervious surface to 25% within the Shoreland Overlay District. So this would be an overage of 2.6% on this lot. The third variance is to allow metal siding on the proposed residential structure. Currently, city code requires exterior walls of single-family residences to be similar in appearance to normal wood, vinyl siding, or masonry. This is something we'll discuss later with the barn dominiums, the siding, but as that has not gone through council yet, we have to look at the code as it currently is. These are 3 separate variances, so the Planning Commission may approve 1, 2, all, or none of them. Approving one variance does not require the approval, or recommending approval of one variance does not require recommending approval of another. These are all to be considered separately. This is just an image of the proposed metal siding that the applicant has discussed with me. He has not told me which style he's leaning towards, but he's told me the brand, which is True Log. These are all of the siding options that they have. Just thought I'd include this visual. As we've talked about before, with a variance, the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that they have a practical difficulty that can only be remedied through the granting of a variance. There are 3 standards to be met with these practical difficulties. The first is that the request is reasonable, that the applicant is proposing to use the land in a way that makes sense, and that their request is reasonable. The second is that the request is due to a unique circumstance that is unique to the property and not caused by the landowner. So this is often something physical, such as the presence of a wetland, the presence of significant trees, or something to do with the slope of the land. Those are often unique circumstances that would allow something to be considered for a variance. Financial reasons do not alone constitute a reason for a variance. And the third standard is that the variance, if granted, will not have a negative impact on neighborhood character. So it won't look out of place or out of scale with the surrounding neighborhood. I've provided findings of fact for the approval and denial of each variance for each of these standards. Those are in the staff report and are noted on the draft resolutions. So yes, just as a reminder, you have options here. So the first option is to recommend approval of all 3 variances at this property. You'd recommend this if you find that all of the variances meet all of the parts of the practical difficulties tests. On the other hand, you could recommend denial of these variances if you find that they do not meet the 3 prongs of this test. And you may also recommend a combination of approval and denial. Approve 2 variances, deny 1, vice versa. These are again to be considered separately. And the resolution can be modified to reflect the Planning Commission's recommendations when you find those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to open the public hearing for this one. Does anyone want to come up and talk about this item? Okay. Okay, great. If you could just, did you happen to sign?
I did.
Okay, great.
My name's Maggie Hool. I am Greg Underdahl's daughter. He couldn't be here tonight. They do have a resident in Florida. He's building this kind of as a cabin place to stay in the summers while he's here with my mom. One of the reasons of the variance for the single car garage, not as big, is because this was a double lot that he made into one. So behind this, they already have a structure with a single car garage on it. So that is one of the reasons why he's looking for a smaller garage that's going to be attached to the existing home that they're going to build. The other thing, I'm not exactly sure on the size, on why that is different. And for the siding is more so for maintenance on that.
Okay. You're a good daughter.
Well, it's close to us and my kids are super excited for them to be close in the summers.
Great.
So.
Does anyone have any questions for, it's Maggie, right?
No.
No? Okay, thank you for coming up. Anyone else have anything they want to say on this item? If not, closing the public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections?
The metal siding, staff can identify circumstances unique, which would, then that's something that we would have to consider if it doesn't pass that prong of the 3-factor. Maintenance, I guess that makes sense. I mean, metal siding's a lot easier to take care of, and I guess I don't have that much experience with it, but can we see it past that part of the uniqueness? I mean, I'm sure it would, what they call it, true log steel. I'm sure it's gonna look, 20 feet away, it'll probably look fine. But as you get up close, and then there's also the precedence that would come with that. Other than that, I don't see a problem with the other 2 variance requests.
But it is a good point that you brought up, that it doesn't comply with all the things that we are always looking at.
Yeah, I'm with you. In the 3-factor test, again, reasonable, certainly, character of the neighborhood, possibly, but the true hardship, and due to the fact that it's easier material that only actually leans onto a financial piece, and then therefore it does not meet that side of it. So can't get behind the third one on that. Don't know if I can get behind the impervious square feet as well. Again, it's being caused by him to create more space to take it up. So, and we've had enough things come before us before where we've had, people have had to get creative to try to get to their 25%. This is also in that shoreland overlay district. Again, precedent is not something I want to mess with lately, let alone in that.
Even being that close.
Being that close. I think we've had other people we've had to deny for. We've had people who took a bathroom remodel project and tried to rebuild a house on it. So we've seen all sorts.
For inches.
Yeah. I hate to say it. I guess I'm not as opposed on the smaller garage, being that there's other structures there, but he could then keep going slightly smaller to not be as deep on it and reduce that impervious square footage. So I can't really get behind any of them, to be honest. I guess maybe the smaller garage, I suppose
You're fine with the smaller garage?
I could get behind that one, but it's lessening, not gradering, only because he's got others.
Yep. Corey, were you gonna say something?
Oh, I don't mind it. I went by the site, the looks, and, it's vinyl covered steel is what it probably is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know, I'm not against the project. I don't think it'll look out of place in the neighborhood,
Yeah,
but
but knowing that it
between now and the
doesn't.
overland,
Mhm.
I hate to jump off that ship.
Yeah.
So
I guess if it's vinyl coated, I guess to me that's also vinyl to a certain extent, so I could get behind an argument there. I just, on a true basis of if it's metal and it's not already there, then it's, again, our job to enforce what we have sitting in front of us and help make those decisions. So
But at that
that's-
point, do you need the variance for it?
He would need a variance if he wants it, but I can't see, I can't see the
Denying
uniqueness not caused by himself, because there's other reasonable materials that he could go with, or other products that aren't metal that have longevity to them, and it's just a higher cost. It can't pass the variance test for me on that factor.
Well,
Mr. Terry?
on the siding, it says, the exterior walls shall be similar in appearance to normal wood, vinyl siding, or masonry. And that word similar, to me, gives enough scope when you look at those samples, that it looks very similar to wood or vinyl. It looks better, actually, in those pictures. But it certainly looks similar to wood or vinyl siding. So I think it meets that.
So then it wouldn't need a variance to begin with.
Wouldn't need
That's
a
what I'm
variance,
saying,
right,
too.
is my thought. The smaller garage, I think in that area, smaller is generally better, because we have small lots, so I'm fine with that. The impervious surface, I don't have enough information to assess what the need is for that. Okay, please.
Come back.
Okay,
to
yeah,
the
if
podium.
you could please come up.
So with this property, he brought the two lots together, and there's already an existing structure, like I said, with the smaller garage already on it, and he has to count that concrete space that's already built on that second lot that he made one, and that's 1,100 square feet, not livable, already counting towards his pervious ground. So that's why he's asking for that extra
Would he be
percentage.
willing to remove it? I mean, it's not our
It's-
job to say what to.
It's
you know.
the people he bought it from just built it on there. They owned multiple lots. Their existing house that they lived in was next to these two lots. They sold that a couple years ago, kept the two, thinking they'd use it from living in the cities and coming out for the weekends. They didn't, so that's why they ended up selling it. But they did just put in this pavilion, it's covered like patio pavilion with a single car garage on it. So he would hate to tear that down because it's brand new.
But
So.
but that'd be the
Mhm.
thing he would have to weigh out,
Mhm.
is what's more beneficial to him in that sense.
Mhm.
So I get it at wanting to have a structure, et cetera, but at the same point, if that's the differentiator between removing that and then he gains the footage and now he has a bigger attached garage, or attached garage with its own patioed area
I
to the
think-
size that works, and that's another solution. But again, I'm not here to try to give those.
Yeah, I think the way the lot is and the way that he could put a structure, it wouldn't work really that well on this lot to build what he's looking to build. With the two, because the lots don't come straight, you can kind of see they're kind of angled in there. So for him to tear that down to even build something that would be what they're looking for, wouldn't really work super great either in that space.
Has your father been working with staff, or have you been?
My father, so I'm kind of coming in blinded a little bit.
Okay.
Nope, that's fine.
So it's been
He
by
said that
email,
he's
phone
talked to all
calls
the
and stuff
city,
like that?
he's talked to all these gals about what he's been wanting to do, and he's voiced his concerns on all of them. So I don't know if you guys can help represent
Yeah,
him
and
a
that's
little
gonna
bit
be our
on
next
this.
stop.
Because you guys know probably way more than I do.
Okay, yeah, we'll be asking them, okay, thank you. So, yeah, Grace, were you working with the applicant then?
Yes, Kendra and I have been working with the applicant, but.
Because it seems to me that you guys are like, it's okay if we recommend it, that somehow we've gotten past the hurdles, so how would you get past that, 2.7% or whatever on the impervious surface?
Yeah, this is one that's definitely discretionary. I did try to find or provide findings of fact for both approval and denial. The presence of the existing structure on this end of the lot, it was existing when they bought the property. It was on there already. So that's something where, yes, the applicant could reasonably perhaps remove some impervious from that structure or the paving there. That is an option, but also it was there when the land was purchased. So that was the leg I was using to stand on there. But again, it's discretionary when it comes to impervious. He has very few patios or walkways, or he's gone with the narrowest driveway possible in the zoning district. So there's very little impervious elsewhere other than that structure in the proposed home.
Okay.
To my way of thinking, it's a very small amount of a percentage that you could argue perhaps is part of the uniqueness of the property, and it just seems like such a waste of time and energy to try and adjust things to, in this case, to try and meet a number that's semi-random. I mean, it has a reason, but to try and meet that at like a 2% or 3%, whatever it is, just seems like too much effort to be worth making a big deal about.
But every time somebody wants an extra 2%, do we just give it?
Well, everything is unique to the property, and that's what I'm saying here. There's no reason to just generally give somebody an overage unless there is a reason that's unique to the property, or for, and this is a unique circumstance of something already built that they didn't build. If they wanted to build all that from the whole thing, that would be a different matter. But they're trying to build something on the property. They're dealing with something that's already there. Why make them have to tear that down just for like a 2% overage?
Well, they could also propose a smaller house then to create the proper square footage. I guess I'm getting back to he's still creating it himself, and that's the sniff test and the variance I can't get
Right.
past.
I don't want to tell somebody how big their space should be. That seems reasonable to this property just because I want to meet some arbitrary number of that's a 2% or 3% difference.
Yeah, and again, I would love to have a perfectly straight driveway too, but whoever I bought it from couldn't go over a certain amount, so it goes wide, narrow, wide. I didn't make the rules when it happened. I'm just trying to understand it and not create precedents every time someone says, well, but I want an extra bathroom in my house, so I want a bigger house. I mean, in theory, again, and I don't want to tell him to build smaller. I wish everybody to have everything everybody wanted. But I'm just going through with what our guidelines are and how I treat variances, and so I know for me, I have a hard time, even though it's close, I do, but how many times have you give, and then, okay, well, what's the new standard?
Right, but the request is reasonable. It doesn't have a negative impact on the neighborhood. There is a unique circumstance, so it's just a matter of a number, but it meets actually the 3 criteria to me.
Okay, Brian or Corey, did you want to jump in?
No, I already said, I don't
Okay.
think it's that bad. Where's
Yeah,
the septic? I see the well.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there.
And then just, I'm comfortable with the variances as they're requested also. Any more discussion? Did anyone want to make a motion? You can make your motion if you want to,
Yep.
Kenner, or, okay,
See where it's going.
okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the variances as requested with the staff-supported commentary or suggestions.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Any more discussion?
Just reiterate my same points that I've already said. I feel like this is something that he could avoid because he's creating it. He's creating the need for it himself, and therefore it does not pass. the variance test, in my humble opinion.
And that's appreciated. Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Aye.
Okay, there's 2 ayes and 3, or 3 in favor and 2 opposed. That motion passes. Okay, and the applicant, so that is going to city council on?
June 9th.
June 9th also. And again, so this was kind of the chance for you or your dad or somebody to say something, and then there won't be another public hearing. And that's just a recommendation. Thank you. Okay. And then the next one is for Mark Fors.
All right, thank you everyone for bearing with us. This is a public hearing for a rear yard setback and impervious surface coverage variances at 144 Laurel Road Northeast. So this is 2 variances. Mark Fors is the applicant. His property is zoned Coon Lake Residential in the Coon Lake Beach neighborhood, and it's guided Coon Lake. The property is within the Shoreland Overlay District. Similar to the previous property, the lake is just north. This property is 0.22 acres. This is a unique situation because the applicant was issued a building permit for this property, or for the structure on this property, in April of 2024, and a certificate of occupancy was issued in November of 2024. So the structure is currently standing. Staff was alerted of this by a neighbor and has been in contact with the property owner ever since. The reason that this is something that that an after-the-fact variance is being sought for is because this property does not have the same protections as a property that has a variance would have, or a property that is a legal non-conforming use would have. So if this the structure were to be damaged, the homeowner would not be able to repair it. Similarly, if the homeowner goes to sell the home and a realtor or anyone else is doing their due diligence, they would find that this property is not protected as others in the city are that have been granted variances. So this is why we're here today. There are 2 variances that are being requested. The first is for a rear yard setback of 9.3 feet. City code in the Coon Lake Residential District requires that the rear yard setback is 25 feet. So this is a 15.7-foot reduction of the rear yard setback. The second variance is to allow an impervious surface coverage of 25.09%. Similar with the last property, the city code limits impervious surface to 25% within the Shoreland Overlay District. On this property, this means that there's an overage of 9 feet. So a very small overage. These are 2 separate variances, so the Planning Commission may find that one, both, or none of them meet the ordinance standards, and recommending approval of one variance does not require recommending approval of the other. This is the site. This is the as-built for the site, so things that are currently on the property. This is, again, subject to the practical difficulties test. First, that both of the requests are reasonable. That the requests are due to unique circumstances on the property that are not caused by the landowner, and that the variance, if granted, will not have a negative impact on neighborhood character. One of the city engineer's comments was about the drainage on the lot. On Monday, the applicant emailed me a narrative and photos of the drainage on their lot, describing how the elevation of the lot is below the elevation of the road, and the water drains into the property, not into neighboring properties. These pictures were provided to me, so I've included them here. The Planning Commission has options. The first is to recommend approval of both variances if you find that both variances meet all 3 prongs of the practical difficulties test. The second is to recommend denial if you find that the practical difficulties are not met for each of the variances. And the third is to recommend approval of one and denial of another if you find that the practical difficulties test was met for one but not the other. The findings of fact for approval and denial are in the draft resolutions, and they can be modified to reflect the Planning Commission's recommendations.
Thank you. So we're going to open up the public hearing on this one. And your mark?
I am Mark.
Okay, come on up to the microphone, please, and state your name and your address, please.
My name is Mark, my name is Mark Forrest, 144 Laurel Road. So this is a tough situation. My wife and I are pretty upset about the whole situation, as I'm sure you'll be hearing something from our neighbor too. But the fact of the matter is that we did submit all required paperwork for setbacks and sizes and everything else. Received permits to build. We did make a few. I'm sorry. So we did submit all the required surveys, building plans, site plans, everything else. It was approved by the city inspectors. So had we known that there was an issue with the setback, we would have either A, changed our design, which would include moving our septic, because that was the main constraint, was we couldn't build anywhere but where it is, because there was an existing septic already from a previous structure, or which would obviously driven up the cost, or just scrap the project and just continue on with our seasonal cabin. As to the overlay, that was a bit of a shock to us when we actually had that come in. But we were working under the assumption our lot was 100 by 100, which is what the Anoka County says it is. And that's why we ended up with the 0.09%. We had been doing the math all along to make sure, and we made many changes to our house plan, trying to get it to fit into this 2,500 square feet, when unfortunately we only had 2,492. Oh well, and we could have sliced a couple of feet off here or there or something, but that's what happened there. But so unfortunately, of course, it's built. It can't get moved, and for us to move it, my rough back of the envelope calculations, it would be somewhere north of $1 million for demolition, reconstruction, and that's even if a bank would even give us a loan to do that, which probably would not happen. So the house is there. We can't move it, and I'm sorry that this happened, but we moved forward in good faith and got all the signatures that were required. So, questions?
Gentlemen? No questions? Go ahead.
You referenced the Anoka County survey. Did you hire an actual survey crew then?
Well, we did hire survey crews, and that's where the as-built is from. The as-built is from.
Okay.
And now this is the same company that did the first survey was as proposed, but the city didn't ask for an impervious calculation as part of that. It wasn't until this issue came up that Grace asked for a impervious, a survey that also did the impervious, and that's when we found out, oh, it's not 10,000 square feet. If you actually look up our property in Anoka County, it says lot size 100 by 100. That's what I was referring to, and that's what we were using as our calculation. We had no reason to know that because our lot was a little oblong and a little crooked, that there was a little bit of stuff cut off. But again, if we have to do something, we can do something, but that's not a problem.
What would that be? Potentially shrink or remove the sheds in the back corner of the lot?
No,
Or?
it would basically remove, we have a 4x4 apron in front of one of the utility door of the garage. A sledgehammer and an afternoon worth of work will take care of that.
Okay.
But it's 0.09%, and what I also point out, that as you look at these calculations, they all say plus minus, which means they're rounded. So could be he rounded a few things up too much or down too much somewhere, and it actually is 24.98. I don't know, but so I guess I would be surprised if, based on the previous conversation, that 0.09% is going to be a problem. We didn't do it intentionally.
Okay.
So again, we thought we were following all the rules, right?
Right.
So.
Okay. No other questions of the applicant, and there's somebody else that's gonna be talking, do you think? Okay, okay, Mark, thank you very much for all that information. Okay, and who else would like to come up and talk? Okay, if you could please speak into the microphone. And if you could let us know, first if you could say your name and address, and then,
I'm Marcia Carson, and I'm at 151 Maple Road, and this house is behind my house.
and so ma'am, I'm just gonna ask you to address why you think these variances shouldn't be given to Mr. Force.
Why do I think what?
Why these variances should not be recommended.
Okay.
So,
If you take, I took a little piece of paper and I cut it out to match this house that is behind it. And I moved it right up here, and it fits right, real good right onto the garage. I can't see that could interfere with anything. This house didn't have to be built when it was built.
right, so we're gonna be talking about these variances.
I know, but this house is, I stuck a bamboo pole through there and it showed that it was 6 feet from the fence that's here. And the fence is crooked, it juts out into my yard. And when we had, our own fence, before that, they asked us if we would want to take it down, and they would put up a white vinyl one, but there's one on the other side. Now you see, you can look, on this picture, it's got the brown fence. It's straight. The picture that you sent me in the mail that came with your flyer that you told us about this meeting, and I meant to grab that picture, but there's a picture of the lots from above, and you can see the line that runs, not Maple Road and not Laurel, but halfway in between, you can see there's a straight lot line that runs all the way through there. It should be straight. It's not now. This fence that was straight, it was replaced with one that starts closer to the house at the north side, and it comes in, it juts into my yard on the south side, and then it ends, and there's a space in there. But I had, when the surveyor was working on it, we didn't get to talk to him afterwards, and anyhow, I could see that he had some stakes stuck in there that weren't right. So I tied a string to the post that the fence had been previously connected to, and down to the other end, and allowing for the fact that the fence that's on this side of me they allowed an extra, like almost a half a foot in there. So, but there was a little rebar stake in the ground. And so if you tied that onto that and you ran it down to the other end and put it to the post that it was connected to, it makes a nice straight line, but that's not how the fence goes.
So you're wanting him to move the fence?
Well, yes, but that's not. I'm gonna bring this over there and show you this. I have got 50 feet of land between my foundation and the fence, and they've got six foot on the other side.
Okay, you're gonna have to speak into the microphone,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. And then this one.
Okay.
See, the fence. Okay. Okay.
Alrighty.
I wanted you to see how close that is. I mean, this house is built just right on a fence line almost.
Yeah, and we can see it from here.
So anyhow, I wrote something out here, and it's double spaced. It's not very long. Can I read it to you?
No, I think we understand what you're.
That you're in opposition.
Wanting. Yeah.
Well, I've been in and I was talking to Aaron, and I didn't get a straight answer out of him. He didn't answer my question, and he came and brought me survey, and that was supposed to answer my question, and I went home, and I still didn't see that there was any indication that that back, setback had been changed,
Mhm.
and it hadn't been changed.
So this
And
has been
so
going
then I-
on
then
quite a
I-
while then?
Pardon?
This has been going on quite a while?
Yes,
Since Aaron
this
was here?
last summer. And,
Mhm.
well, they were building the house, and then I talked to, Nick, Schwartz or whatever, I think that's his name. Anyhow, he said he'd come out and bring me a copy of, cause I asked for a survey that had the setback written on it, because nobody had given me a straight answer on that. So
Mhm.
he came out and he gave it to me, and I said, why isn't the setback written on there? But if you get it off of A1, which I'm not gonna do that, but somebody did pull that up and accidentally got this, and it said the 25-foot setback on there. And that's what I wanted to see. And he says, oh yes, it's on there, I say, it's a 10-foot setback. I said, that may be where they say they built a house, but that's not the setback. It's, you know, it's a 25-foot setback. And then we went into a meeting on, one of these city hall meetings on the 23rd of September, and that is when Aaron was sitting over there, and he was talking about this other property that you were talking about just
Mhm,
before
I
this.
remember.
And but he said that his setback was 25 feet, and I asked him, I said, could you repeat that please? Because he hadn't said that to me before. And he said, yes, the setback is 25 feet. And he said, and we talked before, but we're gonna have to talk again. But anyhow, so that is the first time I knew what the setback was, and somebody had actually confirmed it to me. Now this is standing in the way of the citizens' rights to know what's going on and to be able to object when it's conceivable that it could do some good.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, if we're talking after the fact, I don't want this house here, I want it moved.
You want the house moved?
Yes, and
Okay.
besides, now, I've got another question for you. I was told that Mr. Bowen owned this house, and then this construction company is also named Bowen, but the people in Oakland County did not ever, they didn't know the name, they just, and so this mark, you know, but why is Bowen's name on the survey? I just don't understand.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that you want the house moved, and is that true?
Yes, because look,
Okay.
they could have put the house right here.
Okay.
They could have attached it to this garage, and these containers for the septic, there's only a 10-foot setback on these, but then the drain field's got a larger setback. There is no problem with the way this house is on there, where I'm, with this little blue house on there.
Okay.
There's no reason that could have been done, and that would have been back where it should be. It's that, you know, they didn't need to infringe on the 25-foot setback.
Okay.
25 feet and 6 feet are way different, and it depends on what is the overhang on the roof. If the overhang on the roof is more than 2 feet, I believe it is, then you have to count that too. That's why it's 6 feet is what.
Okay, I think we understand definitely what
Okay.
you're,
So, and there's no reason that I should be so upset about this.
sure.
This should have been handled properly by the people that are employed down here.
Okay.
know
So
what I'm saying?
we'll be asking them in just a second,
Because
but,
there's a 1913 case action that could happen, and I don't wanna go there,
okay.
you know? So anyhow, and, I'm just very confused because I thought that Bowen's name was on here, and I thought he didn't report buying a house to the city hall. And so I don't understand why do I have Bowen's name on the survey?
Okay, well, we will ask those questions then.
Okay.
Okay, I do thank you for speaking up very
Okay.
much. I mean, this
Well,
is your
somebody's
chance.
got to, because
Sure.
when they were building that little garage next door to me, I tried calling a guy by the name of Green. Well, he wasn't available, but he sure didn't return my call later. Now, the next day, he never called me back. So you cannot run a city like this. You
Okay.
have to go by the rules, otherwise, just get rid of the rules. There's no point in them if they are not going to follow them. you know.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, would you like to come back up?
Yeah, just if you have any follow-up questions, so.
If you could speak into the
Yeah,
microphone,
so-
please.
You might settle that question again.
Okay, so there's a number of things. So first off, the fence was also permitted and inspected and is on the property line. There is another fence on the previous property that you were looking at that's a white vinyl that's set back a foot from the property line, and there is a gap there, but that's not my fence. Okay, all right, so that would be explaining why they're not in a straight line. Part of the fence is mine, part of the fence belongs to Greg. Yep. 16-inch eaves, by the way. We'd actually started this whole thing was with a 10-foot setback, and then the city said, well, you gotta move your foundation back a little bit due to the septic tanks, and they kind of split the difference, and that's why we ended up at 9.3. So my general contractor, Dustin Bowen, whose name was on the surveys because that's who ordered the surveys. So that's where his name came from, but he called up and he talked to Aaron, and Aaron said, well, that's a slab, not a foundation. Yeah, and he said, yeah, that's fine, just move it back a little bit, and then it'll be fine. So even at that point, because we were still laying flags, this issue could have been addressed, but it wasn't. So we went ahead with the construction, and now we're here.
Yeah, I think I understand very well your frustration and the frustration of the neighbor
I
also.
understand why she's frustrated too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, where's the
Yeah,
well?
okay.
Where's the well on the site?
Oh, sure. All right, so, the well is right here. Okay, so when we originally bought the property, there was a small cabin, seasonal cabin, and there was a well out in front of it, and then there was a septic tank. And then about a month after we bought the place, we got a letter from the city saying our septic was condemned. And, okay, we were probably gonna replace it anyway, so that's when we put this septic up here, because it was the only place you could go, and then that well had to go, so that's why it went over there. That was way back when we first bought the place, right? And then we built the garage, right, and the existing structure was still here. We got some variances for that, because at the time it was a 10-foot side setback, and now it's a 7, but we got the variance for the 7. And we moved it up a little bit because we had to get away from the well. So, and that's why we targeted putting the house here, is because we got a existing septic here, and an existing structure here.
And the well, you have to get to the well.
And the well needs to be serviced, right? So we need to be able to get, and we've already had them out to service it a couple of times. They have to back their truck in.
Did you guys install the well?
Oh, we had it installed,
It was,
yes.
you did, okay.
Yeah, there was on one of those really old sand point went. Yeah, so we went back through the records as part of this process, so the first time this property shows up on the city records is 1946, so whatever building standards were back then is how that was built, but yeah.
Or
So-
their lack of.
Or lack of, yeah. My wife likes to joke that this was a cabin that her dad would have built, yeah. So I think that's maybe addressing some of the questions that Marcia brought up, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. I don't think
I do have a question about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, I have a survey for my property, and it shows that the house is 50 foot from the foundation of the house is 50 feet from the lot line. And you can figure out that it's probably correct on the north end, but on the south end, it's not. Because that fence is on my property. And we've had that fence, it was there before I moved here, and it's still got a little gate on it, still attached to that post down there. And so you can see where it was hooked up, you know.
Okay, and I think that's an issue that we won't be able to address here.
So,
Do you guys agree?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's outside of the
that's
scope.
more of a city thing, but not the planning commission. We're gonna be addressing the variances. It's fine that you brought it up, but this commission can't address that particular issue.
And what the rules are that I found on the computer was that the fence can come up to the property line. So it shouldn't be on top of the line and.
Right, and again, that's not something that we can discuss here.
And it isn't that much over the line, but it is like probably 6 inches over the line under my property. And so it's still, you know.
That'd be something to bring up to the city during business hours, and they can look into that.
Yep.
So anyhow, you're saying these Bethel people here?
Yes.
Right,
They
yeah,
would be
so
your
not for
first
this
resource.
commission, but, yeah.
Okay.
call the
For a
city
property
that.
fence
Because, I
issue.
mean, I've got a survey, that, you know, there was a
Yeah.
survey done before I bought the place, and I'm not,
Yeah.
no, we haven't moved anything.
Yeah, but we
Okay.
won't be talking
Yep.
about that tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think our public hearing is still open, isn't it? Okay, I'm gonna close that unless anybody else wants to come up and talk. We are closing the public hearing, and gentlemen, I'm sure you're not gonna be staying around for the barn dominium, are you?
I don't even think anyone should be, probably, because that's gonna take more, you might wanna table it for
Okay.
a shorter meeting.
Maybe we could do that. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this discussion?
Well, it's a city, to me, it's a city-caused problem. Staff should have, I don't remember, did this come before us for a variance?
It seems very
The garage
familiar.
did. I recall that when the garage came, but not the home.
Not the home, and the home is the issue here.
And that may be where the issue came in, is they
Thank
look
you.
up the property and they
Bye.
see a variance already tied to it, and that variance was for a garage. And again, I'm not giving you excuses, and I'm totally making a guess here, but
Yes,
that would be the how,
remember.
in my opinion. But
So we're trying to clean up a mess that this city staff should have avoided, it seems. So I'm really not moved by the need to, with the 0.9% difference, like, I mean, you could probably resurvey that and make it work. It's such a small error that I don't know why we're dealing with that one. But the setback one, we have to solve what the city staff should have, and I don't know what our options are.
so
Kendra or Grace, what are your comments to that on the setback?
Yeah, it's a significant encroachment that should have been caught during plan review, and it was not. This is something that I think, had it been addressed according to the code when it came in, could have been, you know, the house perhaps could have been located somewhere else on the lot. It's now where it is. We don't, you know, want to set precedent granting after the fact variances. That's not, you know, something that we want to be doing. But this is something that Kendra and I came into by previous staff. And again, the house as it is now is not granted those same protections as other properties that have variances. So it will be an issue when he goes to sell the home someday if the house is damaged and needs to be significantly repaired. It's not an ideal situation to be in. So that's, yeah, I think that's.
But he doesn't have a lot of choices right now.
Not a lot of choices, yes. It's not, I mean, moving the house isn't feasible, really. Doesn't have a ton of options. He could remove impervious surface. That is something where he does have options to do that in some areas.
I think that's least of our.
Yeah, least of the issue here. As for the setback, staff doesn't see a ton of realistic ways to deal with this other than granting this
But you
after the
could
fact variance.
support the variance.
Yes, I could. Yes, we could support the variance. Yes.
Which is also probably consistent with a lot of other setback variances in the neighborhood.
I think it's pretty clear that at the time, city staff thought the setback was 10 feet because they made the comment of,
Yeah,
let's
splitting
get
the
it to
difference.
9.3.
Right.
And they have to be, I don't recall by memory, I used to, younger, remember the setbacks for wells and septics, and that came into play too. So this is,
It's complicated on these
Yes.
lots, yeah. I wish I could go back and understand the reasoning or how this came to be. But we tried to find anything we could, and there was nothing much out there, so.
I know in my 15 years, and Glenn, you've been here longer than I have, it's pretty rare when we've had after the fact variances come before us. The last time I remember we had one of these, and it was in this area of the city. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we tried to look at it in the scope. I'm leaning on our own precedents here and say, I thought we leaned on the idea that if this were coming before us today, not having been built, would we have approved variance or not, based on what's there? And for me, hearing the applicant's timeline of when purchased to garage to reconstruction of, or septic to then reconstruction of home, and again, Grace, I'm gonna lean on you guys. Realistically, with where, I mean, does the applicant's story line up that there really is not a reasonable position to put the home otherwise, given the location of well, septic, and lot lines?
Yes, I'd say that. I can't pull the exact timeline out of my head right now, but with how it sounds and what I've seen in the file, yeah, I think even if this was something that came in and it was, brought before the planning commission, I think there would still be some sort of variance issued for a setback.
Doing the following the bouncing ball, for me, again, everything was fine and compliant with variances, et cetera, up to the point of installation of well and septic. And that leads them back to just the cabin, correct me, am I right in that timeline? I'm getting ahead, the cabin was the last thing to be, or the rebuild was the last piece of this puzzle. The septic was in before the cabin, or before the reconstruction?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. So if I'm following, you bought it legally fine. You got a variance for the garage, legally fine. You put in a new well, legally fine.
We put the well and the septic in before the garage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
It furthers my point, so thank you. But yes, those were both put in compliant. Garage, you asked for variance, was granted, built. Now we're down to the cabin. So to me, I'm trying to put myself in that timeline of, let's pretend the house wasn't built, you came before us, said, hey, I want to rebuild, this is what I'm trying to do.
Right.
What would we have done at that time? And then I have to sprinkle in, okay, there was somewhere an error done internally, and then in my head, I have to outweigh the cost of what does it cost the city to try to correct that if we were to rectify it completely, versus would we have approved it or not? So, thank you for helping me with the timeline. I'm trying to put myself in that spot of what we would and could have.
Come up in the discussion earlier,
Could have pivoted.
We could have looked at alternatives and or not done the project at all. But we were told to go ahead, and so we did.
And that's fair and reasonable. I mean, I'm under no argument of that. I'm just trying to do my due diligence in the process. So thank you for your patience as I walked myself through that.
So with that, what do you think?
In this case, I would have to be in approval of an after-the-fact variance, given both possible city error, wherever that may have been, and why, we don't know. And yes, if they were trying to come before us, hitting the 3-factor test, I think it's pretty close. It'd be hard not to, given, again, the clerical error. As far as the 0.09, I agree, that's pretty minimal. I'm not looking to have somebody deconstruct again. Some forgiveness in the fact that from the city side, there was something there, and the lot survey, et cetera. So I can be reasonable in that. That's my impression on that. But again, if this was coming before us, I'd probably push it to the, just know I would push that to the 25 to say, do what you can to ease that up to get it to the number that you're supposed to be at.
No sledgehammers
Yeah, no
required.
sledgehammer required for my position on that.
So Brian, you usually come up with something to argue against.
From a positive aspect.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the whole after the fact that this is brought on by a neighboring lot, so. I'm just wondering about that, the building permit. Do we know that the city issued that?
Oh, they would have had to.
Yes,
Yeah.
the city issued the building permit. There's a signature dated April something 2024 on there. Yes.
Okay. You know, I was, because this is an after the fact, it occurred to me, would this have come up had the neighbor not said anything? And to that, the neighbor does have a point, because this is where, you know, the obvious, why this is brought before us right now. So, but when I followed the timeline that Tanner just laid out, that fits pretty well. I can see a clerical mistake at the city's end where 10 feet was considered rather than 25, you know, I know I make mistakes, and I could see that fitting very well. So I was thinking the sledgehammer, but the plus minus symbol on this survey does actually have a value. We don't know what that value is, but 0.09% seems
And you can
well
even see the
within it.
100R in the parentheses there of rounded.
So, you know, it's an after the fact, it's before us, and yeah, there's a lot of resource would have to be committed to get that rear setback to 25 feet. And I don't know that that's gonna be a wise use of our resources.
Yeah, because again, we're going to the resource thing. If, let's just say the city was somehow deemed and found responsible after the fact, and we ended up incurring said costs, $1 million, et cetera. Keep in mind, that's every resident absorbs that. That's not you, that's, if it is a fault of the city, that goes on everyone, and that's part of where, at least for me, my decision-making process comes into play of, do I or also want to be responsible to say everyone needs to pay for X on said thing, or?
$1 million in the budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
So.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the 2 variances before us.
What a great motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. And this is going to city council also?
Yes, on
9th?
June 9th.
Okay, and remember again that this is just a recommendation from our commission that the city council approve both variances.
And then where do those council meetings take place?
Right here.
Okay.
Yep, on June 9th. And again, there won't be a public hearing like this. If you need to say something to the council, there's a public forum, but you only get 3 minutes at the very most. Thank you. Okay, we're at the barn dominium.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table that to another agenda that's shorter than this one, where we could spend the
No.
time it requires.
I have not been tuned into the barn dominium conversation. Ryan, do you think that it's going to be a great hardship for the council if we table this?
I would say for a good discussion for this, that you're probably gonna take an hour. And being as it's,
Almost 10.
quarter to 10, we've been having almost a 3-hour meeting now. I think it'd be to the most benefit to table it.
Okay.
And, possibly you could schedule a special meeting, 2 weeks, just to have this on the agenda, if that's possible to be done.
Well, how critical is this that it gets done, before the next meeting?
That depends on which council member you may ask.
From your general opinion, is there a specific driving force?
There's nothing relying on a barn dominium ordinance to pass for another thing to be passed.
Are there
That
barn
I
dominium,
know of.
Thank you.
are there applications for barn dominiums lining up, or?
Not that I've been told.
Okay.
This is an ordinance that some members of the council want to have passed just to have a barn dominium ordinance. And
Okay. Okay, well, I just, I don't wanna disrespect the city council.
Yep.
And, act like we're kind of dragging our feet or anything. I do think it's a good idea for us to not have the discussion tonight. I'm really
At
tired,
10
as you can
o'clock.
tell by my speech.
Yeah, at 10 o'clock, I don't blame you. We want to have I believe that you should do your due diligence, take the time it needs to be discussed, because
Like we did with
city
the full
council
buildings.
certainly had I think we took at least three meetings to discuss certain portions of it, and so you're gonna have a discussion.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And
Do
it won't
they-
take 5 minutes.
Do they already have their mind made up? I mean, I guess I'm asking, is our discussion important?
I believe it is.
Well, I know, but, I mean, I'm just asking an honest opinion. Do you think that our discussion is gonna make much difference anyway?
I can't tell you that.
Okay.
I believe that you should definitely have your say, because this is why we have a plan commission, and my personal opinion, I want your opinion if you see, second set of eyes, that you see something wrong with it, or something egregious, or you want this, or you don't want this, whatever. I want to hear that. I want to hear from citizen members.
Yeah, we have to discuss it.
They're coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay,
good, bad,
so-
or otherwise, and
Yeah.
I will second the motion to table.
Okay, and I would prefer to, here's the discussion then. I would prefer to put it in a regular meeting rather than have a special meeting.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
suggestion that,
For discussion's sake, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm with you, I would prefer it in a regular meeting. If it's going to be a joint special meeting, I would like the city council in attendance, and then we knock the issue out.
I don't think it's important enough to have a joint meeting.
Okay.
Good to know.
Okay, so there we are. So we have a motion and a second to table this. And all in favor say aye, until the next
Madam
regular
Chair,
meeting.
Yeah, I was just.
Yeah, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for all your discussion. It's important.